Prologue. Ivo's name is rather special. It is said that when he was born, it happened to be drought for several months. The old intellectual grandfather stroked his beard and named it Woe, praying for the rain to fall from the sky, and woes the rice fields. If it weren't for Grandpa's stuttering habit, the words must start with O. Ivo almost believed it. After growing up, Ivo became an ordinary courier. The biggest feature is that it has no characteristics, and no one pays attention to the characteristics of a small courier. Ivo pedaled his small bicycle and rode to the corner of the road. "Be careful! Get away!" Anxious screams sounded. Ivo subconsciously paused, and then the harsh brakes sounded, and he smelled the burnt smell of tires rubbing against the ground. Flying in midair, Ivo's brain opened wide. Is this the vulgar crossing pre-task sudden car accident? This I feel like I have to wear. I heard that there is a kind of crossing that would be sucked into the toilet, and suddenly I was lucky that I had a car accident. Immediately afterwards, there was darkness in consciousness. This is a dark scorched earth, with blood-red crescents hanging in the sky, and the moonlight like bright red paint penetrates thick dark clouds and splashes on the scorched earth. A huge array of complex patterns is engraved on the scorched earth, and the pale golden lines are complicated, such as countless tangled branches and petals, and the holy platinum mist rises above the array, incompatible with the surrounding dangerous environment. The huge creature was crawling in the center of the magic circle and struggling constantly, as if it had been weighed with infinite weight, and couldn't stand up. This creature is very abstract, with a pair of curling huge horns. The skull is burning with blue flames, the upper body is a burly human body, and the lower body is a horse body. The forehooves are very sturdy, and the knotted muscles are like the roots of an old tree. What's even weirder is a pair of black bat wings that are as black as iron. There are countless cracks in the dark skin of this creature. There are icy blue gleams in the cracks. The skin is like a rough rock, filled with icy air, and the surrounding scorched earth is sealed by a halo of frost. The horrible thing is that this creature has a human face with a hideous expression, and its pupils are as bright as red crystals. One of the four masters of purgatory, the Frost Demon Lord. In the chaotic and evil purgatory, the four major demon lords command millions of demons under their command, possessing the power to destroy the world and destroy the earth. They are the royal family among the demons, and their existence is synonymous with terror and evil. At this time, the Frost Demon Lord was actually imprisoned. The Demon Lord, Droya Balmactus Cesaro Rasuo Hai Yaogu, choose to purify or annihilate. A huge platinum ball of light is suspended in the air, and there seems to be a vague human figure in the center of the ball of light. The sound is emitted from the ball of light, without emotional fluctuations, with a trace of divinity, as if it is a bell to wash away sins. Washing and spreading in the air, hundreds of little demons in the distance who were about to reorganize their bodies were directly annihilated into fly ash under this sound. The Odin gods are all fraudsters, tearing up the armistice agreement made by the ancient gods, just to seize an opportunity before the so-called twilight. The Demon Lord roared. The figure in the ball of light said, "Under the twilight prophecy, there will be no peace in the world, Shenhui will no longer tolerate darkness and shadows, and all evils will only end in annihilation. It's just a timid coward, using justice and evil as an excuse, hypocrisy. This king would rather be annihilated than be purified by you selfish and hypocritical gods to become a battle puppet in the Valhalla Hall of Valor." The Demon Lord exploded with all his powers, and a cloud of frost mist erupted from the texture of the skin like the cracks of the rock, condensing into an extremely cold and dense fire, and behind it appeared a icy blue phantom of the same appearance, which was as huge as the sky and the earth. The violent power of frost like a dancing mad snake condenses and entangles in the air, turning into countless chains engraved with icy blue lines, winding around the thick arm of the Demon Lord Phantom. The chains danced wildly in the surging energy, looking from a distance, as if holding hundreds of unwilling blue thunders in his hands, but the thunder was freezing and freezing. The magic circle could no longer contain it. The Demon Lord stood up abruptly, and the magic circle burst into light shavings. The frost and flames coexisting with extreme cold and extreme heat entangled all over the body, and the four hoofs of the demon lord plunged deep into the ground. The surging power roared, and the earth moved and the mountains shook. Even if it is annihilated, it will stain your divinity. The demon lord roared. The ball of light shines brightly, and rows of long gods surround the ball of light. Like an inscription of praise, the holy hymn of believers appears out of thin air, clear and ethereal, washing the sins of purgatory, and even the sky is gradually clearing. However, behind the dark clouds, what was revealed was not the imaginary blue sky, but the galaxy shattered like a mirror. The stars were twisted faces of resentful souls, complaining silently, and the dense mahjong sky was crowded, proclaiming that this is purgatory. Not a peaceful world. Suddenly, a bright meteor flashed in the blood-red sky, dividing the entire sky into two halves, and quickly disappeared. That race has a newborn. The demon lord screamed in his heart, hundreds of years of investment can finally reap rewards today. The blood-red eyes of the demon lord suddenly lighted up, exploded suddenly, his body exploded, and the frost and flames turned into a monstrous force, freezing the entire scorched earth into a huge block of ice, and an inconspicuous dark red seed flew out in the explosion. Chasing the trail of that bright starlight, the figure in the ball of light stretched out his hand, and a surging divine power followed the demon seed to destroy it. Chapter 1 Remember to buy life insurance before getting gold fingers. Phrygia is the northernmost land of the 5 continents. Phrygia stands for atmosphere and cold wind in Old Odin. The northernmost area of Phrygia is recognized as a restricted area for survival. There are only white mountains that stretch for tens of thousands of miles. The wind and snow that have lasted for hundreds of thousands of years have turned mud and rocks into frozen soil, towering, and extremely cold. Standing in the last populated area to the north of Phrygia and looking over, there are countless snow-white ridge blades inserted into the blue sky. This exclusion zone for survival is called the Cold Night Mountain Range. Legend has it that the Cold Night Mountain Range is the bedroom of the ice goddess Mercers, inhabited by countless powerful frost creatures. In history, hundreds of adventure teams have explored the Cold Night Mountain Range, and life disappeared in the sorrowful north wind. But even if you look through the 700 million books in Suession, there is a secret that has never appeared in the literature. In the depths of the Cold Night Mountains, there exists a small tribe, lonely and mysterious, isolated from the world. There is a colony of the last descendants of a mysterious race. Hang tribe blacksmith Mok Hariken had a child 6 years ago, named Ivo Hariken. The newborn Ivo has a pair of sky blue eyes, which are as clear as the blue sky, like 2 blue crystals, very agile. Ivo was inexplicably reborn in this world 6 years ago. The initial ecstasy faded with time. After a dragon passing by the sky shattered his worldview, he temporarily suppressed his eager curiosity. Outside the Cold Valley tribe is an endless mountain range with countless beasts. The only way for Ivo to understand the new world is the ancient books on the Threste bookshelf of the village chief's house. Those yellowed books record the basic knowledge and history of this world. The Cold Valley tribe is very small, sparsely populated, with only 108 Yon people. The weather is cold and snow falls all the year round. The houses built of wood and stones are piled with thick pure white snow. After living in the tribe for 6 years, Ivo gradually adapted to the cold climate and language and cultural differences. The light of the morning light shone on his face. Ivo opened his eyes on time, put on a fur coat to keep warm from the cold, and after a brief wash, took out a few pieces of dried meat from the large ceramic tank and grabbed a handful of light blue ice. Me, stepping on the stool in front of the stove and busy making breakfast, the aroma of lean meat porridge gradually diffused. Ivo sniffed, turned to the back room and shouted, "Daddy, get up and come out for breakfast." The door curtain opened, and a tall, thin, and haggard middle-aged man walked out, touched Ivo's head, scooped a bowl of light porridge, and ate with a small bite. Mok is the father of this body, with a cheap daddy. At first, Ivo was very awkward, but after 6 years of getting along, there was always some feelings. Ivo also took a bowl and sat down, picked out 2 slices of meat and put them in the Mork bowl. You eat more. Although Mok is a blacksmith, he is not in good health and his lungs are sick. Ivo always hears Mok's painful cough when he strikes iron. When you grow up, eat more meat. It's hard to hit the iron, so eat more by yourself and leave me alone. The food in the tribe is very tight. The wild animals outside the tribe are scarce. The hunting cycle of several hunter teams is uncertain. After each hunting return, each household will not distribute much food. Most of the food is stored in exchange for labor. Mok is a blacksmith who trades wood axes, arrows, and spears for food. There is only a father and no mother in the family. Ivo asked where his mother is, but Mok kept silent. Although Ivo was curious, he got used to it after a long time. Mok remembered something and looked up. Today is your 6th birthday. The village chief will take you to worship the totem and let you choose the enlightenment teacher. The Hang tribe has a tradition. When the young members are 6 years old, they have to undergo enlightenment training. 3 enlightenment teachers are selected from the tribe members. Blacksmith, so Mok succeeded in the position of blacksmith. The Hang tribe advocates labor and does not raise idlers. Almost all members have a division of labor. Choosing an enlightenment teacher is equivalent to choosing a future job in the tribe. But Ivo's ambition is not here. He is very interested in the world outside the tribe and can't help asking, when can I leave the tribe? Mok froze for a moment, looked at Ivo up and down, reminiscing, I saw a curious soul, exactly the same as when I was young, if it weren't for an arrow in my knee. Ivo interrupted helplessly, I don't want to die in the tribe. You can leave the tribe by holding the common Goffage ceremony at the age of 16, Mok said, before the totem is sacrificed, the village chief will tell you the history and truth of the tribe. The common sense books on the village chief's bookshelf have been read by Ivo several times, knowing that there are many races in this world besides humans. Isn't he a human race? No wonder I always feel that the tail vertebrae are somewhat developed. Totem is located in a small valley hundreds of meters outside the village. There is a huge grey stone sculpture. It is a totem built by the tribe. Every member will worship the totem on his birthday. This is a tribal tradition. Ivo looked weird when he thought of that totem. Although Ivo doesn't understand the mythological system of this world, that totem has appeared countless times in previous film and television works, and the sculpture is a demon. What is the mentality of treating the devil as a totem? Was he an evil camp when he was born? Ivo wiped cold sweat, feeling a little stressed. Saying goodbye to the old man, Ivo came to the tribal totem. This is a Formatorai grey stone statue with horns and horseshoes, 6-legged wings, half human half deer body, and a fire-burning skull. A mysterious atmosphere of cold and evil surrounds the statue. This is too ugly. Ivo has always believed that the symbolic meaning of totems is greater than the actual meaning. The statue suddenly vibrated slightly, and the snow kept shaking off, as if feeling Ivo's words. Ivo muttered, if you say you are ugly, then you will show up. Is this totem so bright? The vibration of the totem is getting bigger and bigger, much like the lid of the pot when boiling water in the previous life. Hey, this is the rhythm to be fried. Take a few steps back, Ivo feels hairy, isn't you ugly, why are you so excited, you have to face the reality, there are still many beautiful things in the world. The totem's head suddenly exploded, and a dark red light flew out, very fast, and it shot into Ivo's forehead. Ivo vaguely saw that the streamer seemed to be like a seed. After a long pause, he touched his body, feeling no change. Is it an illusion? At this time, a weak voice rang in my mind, it's finally here. Ivo was taken aback for a while, holding his head in panic and yelled, sure enough, something bad went in. The voice was dissatisfied and said, oops. This king is. Ivo slapped his head vigorously, slapped his head, and screamed, come out. This king is happiness. This king. Happiness. Book. There was a snap. The voice was unbearable, and he roared, "Don't shoot! I'm shaking this king to death. What the is this?" Ivo calmed down, looked at the head of the totem that was blown into a pile of rubble, stayed for a while, and cautiously said, "Mr. My king, which fairy are you?" The voice proudly, "This king is your god, your faith." Iwo was taken aback, "Sanking Patriarch? Are your old men wearing them too? Who is the Sanking Patriarch?" The voice was confused, "This king is the great frost demon lord." "Oh! I would be wrong." Ivo coughed awkwardly, "Then can you come out of my head and talk again? This king burned his body, and only this demon seed is left. It is very weak. It can only be restored if it is warmed up in the mind of a child with pure soul power." "Hey? Why can't I read your memory?" the demon lord said strangely. "The soul is so huge, not like a juvenile child at all, it is the perfect brain for nurturing the king's devil seeds." Ivo was in a bad mood. "It was like a thief came into your house and left a note after he was done, boasting that your family is rich." Ivo took a deep breath to calm his mood and asked, "So you want to live forever in my head?" "That's right." Ivo looked around, "Where there is a sharper stone, I need to open a scoop for myself." Ivo took a deep breath. "Be optimistic. Even if there is something in your head, you still have to have confidence in life." Suddenly, a creature appeared in Ivo's consciousness. It was exactly the same as the totem in front of him. The difference was that the demon lord in his consciousness was alive, and the demon lord spoke with a haughty tone, "This is the projection of this king, I am looking for your soul. Come, hundreds of years of worship, when your race returns, surrender to the great lord of the frost demon race, I will give you supreme potential." "Hee, naughty," Ivo smiled, looked around looking for something, and muttered, "This thing looks like a brain tumor, sure enough." The demon lord's ugly face twitched, and it suddenly became even uglier. "The script is wrong. Why doesn't this kid panic at all? After all, this king is also your god, or your race has evolved again, even the kid is so calm." Seeing Ivo weighing the stone in his hand, with an expression of making up his mind, the demon lord was frightened and had to explain, "Don't be afraid, the brain is equivalent to your thinking space. I live in your brain to your advantage. Harmless, coexist with you, and I will die if you die. In order to protect you, this king will provide power to fuse into your body. You will have extremely powerful potential and have a pass to the path of the strong." "Oh!" Iwo suddenly realized that the golden finger of the grandfather card, it really is a benefit to travel through the crowd. "My dear, tell me how long you are late, and leave me a hard-pressed modern Miyoshi young man who waited lonely in the north wind for 6 years, always worrying about where the wild beasts I hadn't seen would ferment me into organic matter. But is present and not the same it is. Goldfinger has been delivered by express delivery, can a happy life be far behind?" Ahem, the above paragraph is just Ivo's YY. Believe it or not, I believe it anyway. We want to be reserved, to hold, to have urine, not to kneel and lick, so Ivo impatiently said, "You say coexistence is coexistence, what do you think of my head, a hotel?" The demon lord almost laughed. How many believers are willing to give everything in exchange for a little bit of the king's strength? The king's grievances live in this kid's mind, and it turns out to be a bad thing in this kid's eyes. Ivo asked, "How long do you want to live?" The demon lord thought for a while, 100 years. Ivo lost her color, and the 4K gold thighs are not as important as privacy. Otherwise, wouldn't his wife be seen out when he had sex? Ivo suddenly felt that the future of husband and wife's life was green. Asshole, this king has no interest in human women. Iwoki said, "Do you know what I think?" The demon lord hummed, "Living in your brain, your thinking is a dialogue with me. This is pretty good. Open the scoop. Open the scoop quickly." You calm down this king. After a while, Ivo sighed and had to accept this reality. He lived in a nail house in his head and couldn't drive away. He could only communicate well, and said helplessly, "What is Xiantai?" The demon lord said proudly, "Remember this king's name, His Royal Highness Droyabal Maktis Sizelo Rasuohai Yaogu." Ivo nodded, "Then your Royal Highness Demakian." "It's Dloyaba." Ivo interrupted it, "Whoever remembers such a long name, I will call you Demasia from now on." The demon lord was furious, "Dare you? You are a tenant, and I am the landlord, why dare not?" The demon lord is inexplicably sad and angry, the demon lord of this king, what a noble demon, the name should be summed up by a child in abbreviations, it is a shame. Even the Avodan system did not humiliate this king so much. Wait, when it comes to the Odin system, the demon lord suddenly felt as if he had forgotten something. Boom! The totem exploded, and a holy platinum light penetrated the space and shot at Ivo's head. The horrible fluctuations almost solidified the air. The demon lord roared, even able to follow this king through the turbulent flow of space to hunt down, this king can only mobilize 1/1000th of his power, and can't stop the divine impact at all. This is the power of the gods. Ivo is stupid, what's the situation? His head has been in the nail house, and it has brought unreasonable disasters, shouldn't I get up today? How powerful is the golden finger of the protagonist of other people's family? If you want the exercise method for the exercise method, and the pill for the pill, my gold finger will give me a shot. What use do you want? The platinum divine impact shot in front of Ivo in a flash, and a tremor of death swept through his body. Even after dying once, Ivo's heart was still uncontrollably filled with fear, and his whole body could not move, so he could only stare at platinum blankly. The light quickly approached the center of his forehead. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. Does I want to wear it again? Don't tell me, what a waste of taxpayers' money. The demon lord is extremely anxious, the remaining demon power is not enough to let him leave Ivo's body. Ivo is dead, he is also dead, he madly mobilized the remaining power, ready to go desperately. Just as Ivo and the demon lord were facing despair, a big hand stretched out abruptly from the side, grabbing the platinum light, as easily as catching a piece of ripe and falling fruit. Ivo stared blankly at the village chief, who did not know when he appeared next to him. The village chief was holding platinum light in his hand, and it looked like he was holding a glowing egg, without the horror power he had just now. Confused and wondering, what kind of beast's egg is this, how can it shine? Did I have hallucinations due to diarrhea? The village chief gently squeezed, the platinum light smashed into pieces, turning into light dust and slowly dissipating. The village chief looked regretful, "Ah, it's broken, it's a pity, I really want to hatch and see the species." Ivo's chin almost fell to the ground, "Fuck, the village chief, you have a bunker." The demon lord stared at the confused village chief, "That's the power of God." It is also possible that the divine impact followed him through the turbulent flow of countless spaces, and the power has disappeared. The demon lord would rather believe this explanation. The head of the village frowned and looked at the blasted totem, and said in a bad mood, "Ivo, did you break the totem? Why did you lie down?" Ivo's face was lying flat on the grass, weakly, "There are a lot of things that happened today, let me slow down. I ask for support for the new book, please come for any recommendation tickets, UU Reading Book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to read." The village chief looked distressfully at the gravel on the ground, "Oh, it was a totem before that." Ivo lay on the ground to calm his complex mood, and communicate with the nails in his head by the way. "Demasia, you are a god and a demon lord, what does this mean, and how did you get into my head? Do you even save His Royal Highness now, the demon leader?" It's better to call Demasia. Demasia's projection in the consciousness of Ivo looked helpless, and replied, your family has worshipped this king since independence. This king is one of the 4 demon lords of purgatory, and is the object of worship of your family. This king encountered some dangers and had to turn into a demon seed to escape from purgatory. The demon seed is the root of the existence of the devil, that is, the soul of the devil. Contains the king's most quintessential power and all the knowledge. As long as enough vitality and energy are accumulated, this king can reshape his body and resurrect. The advantage I can bring to you is. Demasha fell silent suddenly and stopped talking. Ivo was surprised. After calling a few times in his head, he didn't respond. When he looked up, the village head was standing beside him. Ivo looked straight and stood up quickly, only now remembering that he came here today to receive enlightenment. The village chief stroked the grey beard, looked at Ivo from left to right, wondering. It seemed that Ivo didn't seem to be able to break the totem. Maybe the totem was in disrepair. The village chief shook his head and left the totem thing in his mind. Later, the tone was calm. Little Ivo, you are already 6 years old, and the future lies on the shoulders of young people. You are qualified to know the truth about the ethnic group. You say. The village chief had a serious tone. We are not people. Ivo reminded in a low voice, the village chief, next time you scold yourself, remember to pick me out. The head of the village gave Ivo a glare, slowly telling the history of the ethnic group. We are a family of mimics, and the Hang tribe is the colony of the last descendants of the mimics. We are the last mimics in this world. Although we look like humans, our bloodline contains unimaginable powers. Before talking about our bloodline ability, I want to tell you the history of the race. It is said that ancient gods created the world and created all species. Whether this is a myth or a fact, it has nothing to do with our clan. Whether other races are created by gods or not, our clan is definitely not created by gods. Because we are man-made. Simulators, the highest achievement of alchemist creation of life. The first generation of impersonators were themselves slaves of various races captured by the human race. After 300 years of experimentation, they extracted and merged from hundreds of thousands of materials. Finally, they were transformed into the human race by the alchemy of the human race on the Odin continent. The war puppets have formed our dirtiest bloodline. It was the end of the Dark Night Age. The human races of the Odin continent were competing for the dominance of the continent from the night race werewolves, blood races, and underworld races. Countless wars and beacon flames enveloped the Odin continent, and the collision of blades and claws produced fierce sparks. The blood gathered into a stream, thousands of years ago. As a war puppet, the simulacrum is constantly being manufactured and discarded, as if it is a fateful reincarnation. We still have wisdom and thinking, but under the constraints of the witchcraft contract, we can only faithfully execute the Maker's orders. The oppression produced resistance, and finally, a certain ancestor of the first generation impersonator succeeded in purifying the bloodline, fusing the ability that alchemy gave us into a real bloodline talent, possessing the ability to inherit, and creating a new race. That ancestor found a way to break the witchcraft contract, tore up the soul contract that the human race had forcibly concluded, and led the remaining hundreds of fellow races to rebellion. According to incomplete epic records, the humans who imprisoned the pioneers of our race at that time were enough 100,000. At this point, the village chief glanced at Ivo, who was already stunned, waited a while, let him digest it, and then smiled and asked, "Guess what? What happened?" Ivo blurted out, "Of course it succeeded, otherwise we would have died a long time ago." Ivo's heart was very uneasy. He always thought that he was a person, but he did not expect that he was artificial. Although people are also artificial, it is a wonderful process from 2 cells to a big tuft. It is simply inexplicable. Wonderful. You ask me, what does this have to do with the current topic? Well, it's okay, continue with the previous topic. The village chief nodded and said, "You are right. Hundreds of ancestors broke out of tens of thousands of people. Although the human race imprisoned us, they also created us. After the pioneers escaped, they joined the crusade in the name of a new race. The wave of Dark Knight rule helped the human race defeat the Dark Knight race and repay the grace of creation. After that, the ancestors came to this inaccessible area and established the Cold Valley tribe. This is the truth of the ethnic group. Ivo was speechless for a long time, and didn't know what expression to make to respond. The village chief said with a solemn expression, "Maybe our rise is very dirty, but you have to remember this sentence: so have the dirtiest bloodline, and we also have the strongest future." What does this mean? Ivo rubbed his chest. It's not dirty. As the village chief told, Ivo gradually understood the bloodline abilities of the impersonator. Mimics can fuse the bloodlines of all species. After fuse the bloodlines, their physical fitness will be greatly enhanced and they will gain certain characteristics and talents of the race. The rarer and stronger the fusion races, the higher the enhancement effect. It can fuse weak gophers and powerful dragons. After fusion of blood, you can transform into a fused race, possessing the power of that race, and the power after transformation is limited by your physical ability and age. Transformation is the strongest combat method of the simulator. The enhancement after fusion is fundamental, which means that the life level of the simulacrum has changed in essence, which is equivalent to an increase in potential. For example, for warriors of the same level, orcs have absolutely stronger physical fitness than humans. This is the difference in racial talents. Simulators can optimize their racial talents and their potential continues to grow. Is like mining. Under the same weight, the value of gold ore is much higher than that of iron ore, and the simulacrum has the ability to transform itself from iron ore to gold mine. Why didn't I feel the power, you said? Ivo felt that the village chief was fooling him. The village chief touched his beard and said, "The bloodline of the impersonator possesses terrifying fusion. Every 10 years, the bloodline of a new race can be integrated. There is no upper limit. That is to say, your bloodline will only be available when you are 10 awakening." Ivo summed it up, hesitatingly asked, "You mean, I can become a beast?" The village chief was silent for a while, then slowly said, "If you want to understand this way, I can't stop you." Too much happened today, and Ivo struggled to digest the information. There lived a frost demon lord in his head. He is not a human, but a race called the Simulator, and has the talent to blend with other races. The most important thing is that the village chief is a bunker. Ivo remembered the uninvited guest in his head, and asked, "Then why do we worship the devil?" The village chief's face suddenly became ugly, and he didn't seem to want to answer this question. Even when he talked about the suffering history of the race, he didn't have such an expression. He said lightly, "I will tell you about this later. There is something tricky." Ivo's gossip heart rises up. No matter how you ask, the village chief just keeps a straight face and does not reveal any information. Ivo is depressed and secretly said, "Anyway, there is a master in his head, just ask Dimasha." Dimasha has been silent all the time. Ivo can roughly understand his thoughts. The village chief just accidentally indirectly made a divine impact. Whether it was a coincidence or strength, Dimasha felt that he was at risk of exposure, so he did not dare to be in front of the village chief. Talk to Ivo. Ivo doesn't have much obsession with becoming stronger. His biggest wish is to become a traveler and to wander around the world. He reads a lot of novels. Although he knows he has great potential, he still can't afford it. Ideas like going to the top. General description: the road to the strong is very difficult, with thorny steps and no assurance of success. Literary point description: I have no reason to become stronger, I don't have a partner I want to protect, and I don't have the bond of an old enemy. One-word description: lazy. The village chief coughed twice. Since the totem is broken, don't sacrifice for the first time. Tell me the 3 enlightenment teachers you chose. Each of them will train you for 2 years, for a total of 6 years. Mork told me that you want to leave. At the age of 16, each member of the tribe must perform a rite of passage, leave the tribe through the more turbulence teleportation array in the tribe, teleport to a fixed altar in Phrygia, and return to the tribe with their own power. It is considered as the completion of the common Gophage ceremony. Ivo was able to leave the tribe, finally let go of his heart, facing the monotonous ice and snow for 6 full years. A normal person would be bored. What is the more turbulent teleportation array? The teleport magic circle. The village chief didn't want to say more. You can't understand the explanation now, choose 3 enlightenment teachers. Ivo rolled his eyes and thought for a while and said, the first one, I want the tavern keeper Bogdo. Bogdo's boss is a short, fat man. He often dips a fork in ice plum wine to get Ivo drunk. The taste of ice plum wine is great. Ivo wants to choose him as a teacher, maybe he can drink for free. The head of the village has a strange expression on his face. The second one is Uncle Anthony, the captain of the hunting team. Hunting must be taught to survive in the wild. Although Ivo is lazy, he still attaches great importance to safety issues. The village chief nodded, this choice is much more normal. The third one, let's take the Uncle Black Robe. Uncle Black Robe is a middle-aged man wrapped in black robe. He is the only beggar in the tribe. A small tribe with a population of less than 200 has a career. What an incredible thing a beggar is. Ivo knows that there is something tricky when I think about it. You ask me what I think about my butt, it's almost upside down. The village head gave Ivo a deep look, are you sure? Ivo feels good about himself, okay. Go to the entrance of the village tomorrow morning. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Bogdo will start teaching you. Ivo nodded to express understanding. The village chief glanced at Ivo, walked away, and secretly said, he has selected the 3 most capable people in the tribe. Did Mock secretly tell him? Ivo and the other village chief walked away, and hurriedly called Dimasia in his heart, are you there? Dimasia's voice finally appeared, and said helplessly, I know what you want to ask. Although you worship me as a totem, it is actually just a cooperative relationship. What happened? Dimasia said, now it's useless if you know it, I don't want to say it. Ivo was angry, I rely on, you just need to stay on my head, don't solve my problems, can you be reasonable? I will tell you when you awakened from the war pattern. What is the war pattern? Ivo found that he still didn't know enough about the world. Dimasia is too lazy to answer such a superficial question, you will soon know that this king is very weak and needs a deep sleep. After finishing talking about Dimasia, he stopped talking. Ivo didn't use any calls. He thought for a while, forget it, let's deal with the enlightenment training first. Dimasia already knows his character from Ivo's thoughts. He is a lazy man with great curiosity. He needs a lot of energy to recover. Only when Ivo gets stronger can he recover faster. He can only use curiosity to spur him. Ivo. Although Dimasia only has the demon seeds, the level of the demon power is very high. It subtly transforms Ivo's body and stimulates the body's potential to the greatest extent. This is the most basic benefit that the Demon Lord brings to Ivo. You reading book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in You reading. For mobile phone users, please go to read. Today is the first day of enlightenment training. Ivo is a little bit excited. Walking out of the house, Ivo stretched out, the bitter cold wind blew his face, forming thin frost. He wiped his face and trot to the entrance of the village. There were 3 men standing at the entrance of the village. The first man was very short and strong, like a small hill, his beard was braided. This man was called Bogado Silvrammer, the owner of the village tavern, and looked similar to his previous life. The dwarves in World of Warcraft are very similar. I still remember that when he was a child, Bogot often used a fork dipped in high-intensity ice plum wine to wipe his mouth, making the young Ivo drunk all day. The second man is slender, with his hands over the knees and a bow and arrows on his back. Anthony Falcon was the hunter captain of the village. In Ivo's memory, every time Anthony returned from hunting, he would drag back dozens of frost wolf corpses with canes, sometimes mixed with the mainland creature's bookcase on the village chief's bookshelf. The corpse of a rare beast in. The third man was shrouded in a black robe. He was thin and couldn't see his face. He was a beggar in the village. Ivo didn't know his name, so he usually called him Uncle Black Robe. When Bogado saw Ivo, his beard trembled and he hummed angrily, "Smelly boy, did you move my wine barrel to the latrine?" It was full the next day. No wonder I said that the latrines are all these days. It exudes a scent of wine. Ivo looked innocent. "I don't know. Last time I lit a fire in my wine cellar, so did you." Ivo looked innocent. "I don't know. And the last time?" "I do not know. Do you have any other words?" Hunter Captain Anthony frowned, interrupted Bogot's beard and stared. His tone was light. "Since you have chosen the three of us as enlightenment instructors, we will try our best to teach you. Each person will train you for 2 years. Bogota the first one teaches you, my second, and Uncle Shadow third. I will teach you the knowledge of hunters." Ivo nodded and looked at Uncle Black Robe. It seemed that the beggar was called Shadow. Uncle Shadow had been silent and inconspicuous. Ivo turned to look at Bogota. "Boss Bogota, do you teach me how to make wine?" Bogota hummed, "No." Ivo was surprised. "Then what else can you teach me?" "Oh, the brat underestimated me." Bogota's beard trembled. "Little Ivo, our mock-up is the most talented fighter. In the next 2 years, I will personally teach you combat skills, and the fighter will be your main occupation." Ivo was shocked, and looked up and down Bogota. "Can you still teach this?" Bogota laughed and stomped his foot suddenly. A wave of air exploded from his footing point, the snow was rolled up, and the ground seemed to be sunk by him. Ivo's feet were soft and almost fell, dumbfounded. "Is this still human power?" Bogota put his hands on his hips and looked triumphant. "Ignorant boy, this is the strength of a warrior." Ivo was extremely shocked. "How did you do it?" Bogota smiled, shook his short hand, and took out a warhammer. The thick and heavy warhammer seemed to be a weightless feather in his hand. He stood with a hammer and said, "The countless ways of fighting divide hundreds of combat occupations. However, there are only 6 cornerstone professions that are the main power system. They are called the 6 cornerstone systems: warriors, swordsmen, knights, magicians, wizards, and the most suitable for impersonators are warriors." Ivo is keenly aware of a word, the main system? That is to say, there are other powers. Yes, only these 6 cornerstone systems can be extensively trained by ordinary people, and some systems are exclusive to certain races, such as the holy words, dragon language, blood power, shaman, etc. The blood of our impersonator's ability does not belong to the 6 systems either. Ivo blinked. "What's the difference between that cornerstone system?" Bogota talked. "Swordsmen can release sword energy by practicing swordsmanship. Swordsmanship is not a combat skill, it is a unique training method for swordsmen to sharpen sword energy. Knights can use the power of the holy light, and the power comes from the 8 wills: humility, honor, sacrifice, bravery, compassion, honesty, spirit, justice. Uphold a creed. The more determined the heart to pursue the creed, the stronger the light drawn from the night will." Magicians and wizards are both wizards, but there is a big difference between the 2 spells. After years of prayers, the magician has obtained the power to be rewarded by the gods. It is called the magic. The people who master the magic are basically the priests of the church. As for the warriors, Ivo hit the palm of his hand with a fist, believing, "I understand, according to this urinary nature, the soldier should have a kind of power called war spirit. No? There is always vindictiveness. There is no? There must be vitality, right? Not yet. True energy? Reiki? Soul power? Not at all? Is it flatulence? What? Warriors can only rely on physical rigidity, just broke and there is no warranty. Granny Cao Li, other systems are so handsome, why are soldiers so vulgar? Pogadul was speechless. For a fighter, the body is the most powerful weapon. It's just a bit of a fool. Looking at my appearance, my temperament, and my conversation, I am like the kind of rough man who fights the flesh. A blue vein burst out of Bogdo's forehead, took a deep breath, and continued to introduce, the 6 cornerstone systems have different cultivation methods. Breaking through the physical limit is the soldier's training goal. For the first time to break through the physical limit, the soldier's body will be condensed and possessed. The tattoo of mysterious power is called war pattern, which is the unique power of the warrior system. But before the awakening war pattern, the fighters were divided into apprentice, formal, and elite fighters. They did not break through the physical limits and still belong to the category of ordinary people, and this classification depends on the mastery of combat skills. After the awakening war pattern, the warrior's way is considered an entry, and there is an official classification. The physical limit is the difference between a mortal and an extraordinary. Elite fighters may not be able to break through the physical limit for 10 years, so the first official rank of a fighter is called the awakening. Each awakened new war pattern is blank at the beginning. It can be filled with beast soul spar of the same level, and randomly obtains an ability that matches the characteristics of the creature. After it is filled successfully, the war pattern ability cannot be changed. After the death of a beast creature with a level, it will condense a special crystal, which is the soul spar. For the first time to break through the physical limits to become an awakened fighter, condense the first blank war pattern, can only absorb the bronze level beast soul spar, and the upper limit of the war pattern filling will increase afterwards. A black light suddenly lit up on Bogdo's chest, rippling like water waves, and flowing quickly through his body. Bogdo's 5 short stature suddenly changed and jumped to about 2 meters. The muscles all over his body were knotted and stronger than a bull. The black streamer was quilted. The skin quickly absorbed it, and the skin seemed to have turned into the color of black iron. The brilliance flowed endlessly, and it looked very hard, and when it moved casually, it made a sonorous sound. This is the power of the war pattern. Bogdo pulled off his collar, revealing his sturdy chest. A palm-sized bull tattoo on his chest was shimmering. This is what I have after absorbing the soul spar of the bronze iron-backed mad cow. Wear weavability steel skin. Ivo was shocked. Grandmas, it can actually increase. Pogadu's face twitched, the black iron light quickly faded, and his figure returned to the appearance of a dwarf. Ivo looked tangled, but what do I learn from this? I am a civilized person. Anthony frowned. The more you learn, the higher your survival rate in the bar mitzvah, so it's best not to be lazy. At the age of 16, you will hold your common goffage ceremony. You will be sent outside the cold night mountain range through the more turbulent current teleportation array. You have to travel tens of thousands of miles to the cold valley tribe on your own. The danger is everywhere. The more you learn now, the more ways you can save your life in the future. So dangerous outside. Ivo muttered to himself. Bogado uttered words that were completely inconsistent with his rugged appearance, and the face under the beard was a bit sentimental. Power, let the gods have believers, let the church become a faith, let the people rule the continent, let the elves be high, let the dragons choose to hide, let the demons escape from purgatory, let us be born in nothingness. Ivo's mouth twitched. Isn't it the law of the jungle? Do you want to make up the word count for this art? Okay, Bogdo will teach you the most basic things, and I will come to you again in 2 years. Anthony listened for a long time and was impatient, turned and left. Uncle Shadow still remained silent and left alone. The uncle beggar didn't seem to teach him anything. Could he teach him how to make money? Yukir, the #1 scholar in outside world? Ivo's brain is wide open. Pogadu took out a small iron warhammer and threw it at Ivo. Ivo's arm sank after catching the warhammer, and he was shocked. The weight was just right for him. It was neither light nor laborious. Bogdo picked up the warhammer casually and said solemnly, "Combat skills are not only a means of training for soldiers, but also a means of confronting the enemy. In this world, genres of combat skills are as uncountable as the stars in the night sky. There is no fixed level of combat skills, because there are no useless combat skills, only waste fighters. The fighter's mastery of combat skills is divided into 4 levels: disciple, proficient, expert, and master. A genre contains several combat skills. From shallow to deep, the higher the mastery, you can use stronger combat skills in the genre." Ivo listened to his explanation and suddenly realized that just like unlocking the skill tree, the higher the mastery level, the more skills that can be used. The genre of combat skills is very similar to the martial arts in martial arts novels. The moves are skills, but after practicing combat skills, they surpass ordinary people without using moves. The warrior profession has a long history, which can be traced back to the lost hometown of warriors, Xianbada. War patterns give fighters special strength, but they consume a lot of physical strength, and the main fighting method is still combat skills. The physical fitness of a soldier is like a fountain, and the combat technique is the fountain mouth. The larger the mouth, the more powerful it can be. Bogdo's warhammer halted. "I will teach you the powerful combat skills of the dwarves, Heimal flow." The dwarves' combat skills have always been dominated by strength, high hammer flow, warhammers hanging in the air, rotation like a windmill, requiring strong arm strength. It is the military combat skills of the Dwarven King Army Iron Hill Legion. Pay attention to it. Uyuganshu.com. Bogdo stopped talking, and the warhammer was facing the sky diagonally, holding the tail of the hammer in both hands, and performing Heimal flow combat skills. The warhammer is like a windmill, picking, smashing, splitting, throwing, and drawing a line or vertical or horizontal. The oblique circle, every time it turns, the strength increases by 1 point, sweeping out the whistling of the breaking wind. Every time the warhammer turns 9 times, the warhammer will suddenly stop under the control of Bogdo's powerful arm, waist, and leg strength, venting the accumulated power, shattering large areas of air, and making a muffled sound. The airflow spreads like water ripples. The warhammer seemed to have become the iron tail of a giant dragon in the hands of Bogdo's boss. It was agile and heavy. Just looking at it, Ivo felt that there was a powerful aura that made him frightened. Pogadug practiced very slowly, giving Ivo plenty of time to remember his movements. After using it 3 times in a row, Bogdo stopped. "Remember." Ivo looked at the small warhammer in his hand, and said helplessly, "Can I learn other weapons? The hammer is too dirty." "Earth." Bogdo laughed. "You are wrong, the warhammer is one of the most terrifying weapons. Where is the horror?" Pogodo laughed. "If the enemy is wearing armor, the lethality of bladed weapons will be greatly reduced, while blunt weapons can ignore most of the enemy's defenses and direct power through the armor to shock and kill the enemy. The body. If you are strong enough and physically strong, the warhammer is the most suitable weapon for you, and for us, power is the easiest ability to accumulate." Ivo imagined the scene of using the warhammer in the future, chasing people with the hammer and hitting. The image was broken, and the scene was picturesque. UU Reading Book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to Read. The days passed quickly, and 2 years passed quickly. Before the awakening war pattern, the soldiers are divided into apprentice, formal, and elite. Combat skill disciples are trainee fighters, combat skill proficient are formal fighters, and combat skill experts are elite fighters. As for master-level combat skills, it is necessary to understand the profound meaning of the genre. Any combat technique can be mastered at an expert level through long-term training, but a master level cannot break through with time. After 2 years of hard training, Ivo's Heimal combat skills have reached an expert level. 2 years of training also made Ivo's figure rise quickly. Although he is only 8 years old, he is 1.5 meters tall and has a well-proportioned body. Sasser. Ivo raised the warmer with one hand, twisted his wrist suddenly, the hammer head turned over, and an invisible wave shook out from the hammer head, shattering the snow within 1 meter in front of him. Chisel abdomen. Ivo replaced the hammer with both hands, whirled it around, and slammed it in the air. The huge force made the handle of the hammer tremble. This type of combat technique slams into the enemy's abdomen. Although it looks simple, the whole body's strength is poured into this hammer through the rotation of the legs. The warhammer attacks the enemy's soft abdomen like a chisel. If it hits an ordinary person, can break people into two parts. The dwarves are famous for their concise and powerful combat skills. Under Ivo's inconspicuous muscles, there are powers far beyond that of his peers. In just 2 years, you have become an elite fighter, which really surprised me. Bogado stood aside, his tone of approval. The impersonator's potential is extremely high, but Ivo can have the level of an elite fighter at the age of 8, and his speed of practice has greatly exceeded his expectations, making him amazed. You are a fighter. Genius. When I first started training, it took 3 years to reach your current strength. My ambition is to be a civilized person. Like me, crossing should also be going to Kayang Yao drama. Fighting and killing is not suitable for me. Ivo weighed the warhammer, and at this moment he felt that his image was collapsed. Bad. Perhaps because of the relationship between the two lives, his comprehension has been sufficiently improved, and when he is tired, the brain will have a cool breath, allowing him to recover quickly. This is dementia in his mind helping him absorb and exercise. The result of this, imperceptibly transforms his body. The two factors add up, and Ivo's improvement speed is so fast. In the words of martial arts novels, it means that he is savvy and rooted. My enlightenment training for you ends here. The next 2 years will be Anthony's time. Anthony, who was standing not far away, came over and said to Ivo, my training for you will be carried out in the mountains. In the next 2 years, you will follow me hunting and teach you hunter knowledge in practice. Ivo asked, then I can't go home. Cannot. Then I'll go and say goodbye to my father first. Back home, Ivo told Mock about the situation. The father and son cried with each other in their hands. Sorry, the script was wrong, it was a long conversation. Was talking, there was a sudden noise outside the house, and the village chief's daughter, Lore, was blocked on the road by a younger child. The child has a stubborn and arrogant face. He is the son of Burman, the tribe's big ice rice planter. He is only 4 years old this year and 1 year younger than Byler. Ice rice is the main food of the Hang tribe. Lore is wearing a fur collar, his small face is red with cold, and his big eyes are flashing, very cute. Sister Lore, let me kiss you and let you pass. There was a stubborn smile on Chat's face. Daddy said that being kissed by someone will get pregnant. Charter said indifferently, then you will be pregnant with my baby. How can this be? Loer's face flushed. Ivo is full of black lines. The little kid is full of things, and the teacher who teaches physiology should be pulled out and shot for 10 minutes. Lore saw Ivo from a distance, exclaimed, his face turned redder, his eyes wandered shyly, and he looked like he was timid and shy when he wanted to talk to Ivo. Charter said impatiently, kiss me quickly, or I won't let you pass by. Loer was so anxious that he almost cried. Ivo is speechless. Eldest sister, this little kid is half a head shorter than you cry, you can't be done with a kick, you are too introverted. Ivo raised his forehead and said earnestly, Chat, do you really know the difference between boys and girls? Chat raised his head and snorted heavily. Father said that the mission of a man is to make a woman pregnant. Ivo was stunned. Your dad. Charter suddenly jumped up and took a sip on the face of Loer, who was unable to dodge. Loer was taken aback, his eyes filled with tears, and he cried out. Ha ha! Shade laughed triumphantly. This bear boy. Ivo was speechless. Seeing Lore crying sadly, he reprimanded, "Chat, how did you bully the girl? Hurry up and apologize." Chatter looked at Ivo obliquely, and snorted, "Don't get in the way in front of my eyes, get out of the way." Ivo's face sank, and he raised his hand to scare him, "It's rude, I'll discipline you on your behalf." Chatter said angrily, "Do you know who my father is? Do you dare to beat me and starve your family to death?" This unlucky boy, Ivo smiled, and pulled Chat horizontally in front of his knees, slapped his with his palms, and made Chat wow and screamed. Ivo beat and said, "Let you pretend, force, let you be arrogant, let you bully the girl, and show your father in front of me, even if your father's surname is Lee, I will take the shot. Do you dare to hit me? It's you who beat me." Chatter clutched his butt, gave Ivo a stern look, limped and ran away. Ivo didn't take it to heart. Seeing that Lore was still crying, he reluctantly used his nirvana touching his head. The effect was unusual. Lore stopped the crying, his eyes were red, and he looked up at Yi with cute eyes. "Fertile." Iwo sighed, "You won't get pregnant if you kiss." "I don't believe it, you prove it to me." Ivo said with earnest heart, "I will prove it when you grow up." Lore nodded stupidly, suddenly remembered something, and said timidly, "By the way, I am here to send a message. Uncle Anthony said that if you don't go there, he will kill you." Ivo's face twitched, "Why didn't you say it earlier?" I forgot." Mock walked out of the house. "Ivo, I have a gift for you." Ivo turned his head to look, and Mock took out a warhammer with a length of 1 meter 2. The head of the hammer was cast from heavy grain silver and obsidian iron. The cross-section was octagonal. The hammer body was dark and engraved with spiral silver patterns. UU reading www.uuganshu.com feels very heavy. This is. Ivo picked up the hammer, played up and down, and found a string of small characters on the side of the hammerhead Hariken's hammer. Mock smiled and said, "I spent many months creating a present for your 8th birthday." Ivo put it down, "Thank you, Daddy." "Nice. You love it. Well, then I'm leaving now." Saying goodbye to the old man, Ivo came to the entrance of the village. Anthony was a straightforward person. After seeing Ivo, he turned and walked into the forest. Ivo hurriedly picked up the Hariken's hammer and followed him. Faint blue vertical pupils, icy blue hair, streamlined body, and old vine-like muscles. This is a frost wolf that was led away from the wolves by Ivo's trap. It is biting a dead long time the corpse of the beast, the frost wolf was eating, while scanning the surroundings with vigilant eyes. However, he did not find a pair of bright eyes under the snow pile not far away. Suddenly, a spear shot out from the snow, so swiftly that only a shadow was left behind. The frost wolf was very alert, and hurriedly turned the wolf's head away. The arrow that should have hit the eye was inserted into its shoulder, spattering hot blood, leaving a bright red on the snow. The frost wolf's skin and muscles were as hard as frozen rocks, but under the spear that Ivo threw with all his strength, it was pierced without accident. Ivo followed Anthony to learn hunter knowledge for 2 years. In addition to traps, tracking, animal language, and survival in the wild, he also took the initiative to learn from Anthony a long-range attack method, which is a spear-throwing technique. You read that right, I am the legendary title party. UU Reading Book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to Read. Originally, Anthony wanted to teach his best archery skills, but Ivo estimated that he did not have the talent to light up bows and arrows when crossing. Ivo summarized his archery skills, basically shooting 3 meters downwind, protruding against the wind. Even using a slingshot is better than this. But how can the hunter have no long-range combat methods? Anthony can only teach Ivo the spear-throwing technique. According to him, this is the spear-throwing technique of the trolls. Troll hunters are terrifying hunters. Their spear-throwing skills are well known on all continents. Ivo likes troll-throwing spears very much. Look at the orcs' early deployment of troops, how can it be missing the shadow of Moxican and Fangs, cough cough, digress. Ivo, who was 10 years old, jumped out of the forest. He was half a head taller than 2 years ago. Other than that, his body has not changed much. His cheeks are a little thin due to life in the wild, but the dangerous breath of his whole body makes Frosty Wolf cannot help but explode. Ivo dragged a Hurricane's hammer and rushed up. The Frost Wolf roared and leaped, biting Ivo's head with a big mouth, sharp teeth like a cold blade, and a stinking odor sprayed on Ivo. Face. Facing the danger, Ivo was expressionless, punched out, and then hit the Frost Wolf's jaw accurately, closing the Frost Wolf's mouth, and slamming the warmer with the other hand. Bottom up, pressing hard against the abdomen of the Frost Wolf. Himal flow combat technique chisel the abdomen. The Frost Wolf arched up in pain, and suddenly ejected an icy blue halo. This is the natural ability of the Frost Wolf. It contains the power of the ice element and can freeze objects. Ivo has hunted countless Frost Wolves in the past 2 years. He has long been familiar with his abilities. He slammed his feet, and the strong force broke out. The snow was blown up and turned into a snow curtain, blocking the blue ice ring and emitting the sound of scoffing. The sharp and hard wolf claws slid into Ivo's abdomen under the cover of the snow curtain. Across the snow curtain, Ivo held the warmer with both hands, and rotated out an afterimage, covering his body like a hood. Claws cut out a spark of sparks on it, but Ivo could not be hurt. Himal current defensive tactic Soren Hill Fort. Ivo walked around and came to the side of the Frost Wolf. He clamped the wolf's head under his arm with one arm and fiercely hugged the wolf's mouth. The Frost Wolf roared in his throat, struggling constantly, and his 4 claws threw up a large amount of snow. Ivo was almost thrown away, firmly fixed his whole body on his legs, and quickly drew a beast rib dagger from his waist and stabbed it into the back of the Frost Wolf's head. Kill with one blow. The Frost Wolf twitched all over, lost strength, was kicked away by Ivo, fell into the snow, dyed red and pure white. Ivo is more flexible than it was 2 years ago. The more combat skills he learns, the more agile and powerful his skills will be. Anthony sighed and appeared. A long-range attack is an elegant means of killing. Why do you have to fight me every time? Iwohun doesn't care, since I have become a fighter, my physical strength will only increase rapidly between life and death. In the past 2 years, Ivo has honed his combat skills. He is in the stage of growing his body. His physical fitness is rapidly improving. He is 30% stronger than 2 years ago. There is still room for improvement, but there is still a long way to go before reaching the physical fitness limit. Road. Only when the physical fitness reaches the bottleneck that cannot grow is the opportunity for breakthrough. The biggest gain of Ivo in the past 2 years is the skillful use of combat skills in actual combat. The essence of warrior lies in battle. Fighting with wild beasts is a very effective way for beginners to practice. Every time a soldier advances, it is like a prisoner who has to break the shackles alone, which is very difficult. Anthony touched his chin. You are 10 years old, and the bloodline power has been activated. I can help you merge a race. Ivo was not too excited, with a sad expression on his face. I'm not mentally prepared to be a beast yet. Hey, this is the strength that our ancestors bestowed on us. Do you want to refuse my help? Ivo immediately turned into a pleasing face. Don't tell me, I'll listen to you, let's merge. There are 2 ways to fuse blood. One is to swallow. The stronger the race to fuse, the higher the failure rate. Each race has only one chance to try to fuse. If it fails, it will not be able to swallow the blood of that race again. The second is tribute, which is to let the target race with wisdom voluntarily donate blood for you. This method is the safest. The higher the willingness of the devotee, the higher the success rate of integration. Ivo remembered it in his heart and thought for a while and asked, You want me to merge my blood in a short time? Do you use the second method? Anthony sneered, the weak method is beyond my consideration. The ancestors left a strong and domineering creed. Devouring is the law we believe in. Failure can only mean that you are too weak. Ivo wiped his sweat. Can we speak hard? Don't be so strong, you are not Zayahadun. Zayaha what? Zayahadun. What is waiting for you? Zayahadun. What is summer? Zayaha, can we stop playing with this talk? Ivo coughed, and said in doubt, but I won't swallow the method. Anthony smiled, swallowing the blood is the instinct that is immortalized in the bloodline by the ancestors. Then you will naturally do it. What race do you want to integrate? Ivo didn't answer yet, there was a roar of tigers. Roar. The huge tiger roar shook the mountains and forests, and the sound waves overwhelmed large tracts of trees. Ivo stood up abruptly, looked in the direction of the beast's roar, and said to himself, this is the roar of the black iron-level creature's fierce-toothed tiger. After the tiger's roar, there was a low roar of another beast, such as the humming of a bronze bell, which was very powerful. However, this roar was accompanied by a trace of sorrow. Ivo followed the powerful hunter Anthony to learn the animal language. There are simple the ability to communicate with beasts can hear the emotions in the roar. This is the roar of the Ural white bear. Two powerful beasts are at war. How dare the fierce-toothed tiger provoke the Ural white bear, the overlord of this area, could it be? Ivo's eyes brightened. There is only one possibility for this situation. The Ural white bear is living alone. Creatures will produce bear cubs in the coldest winter. Count the days. The most recent period is the production period of Ural white bears. This is the weakest time. Creatures above the black iron level have a certain degree of wisdom, and the wisdom of gold level creatures is no less than that of ordinary humans. Go, and see. Ivo made a decision and left immediately. There is a cliff in the snow forest, and there is a rock cave under the cliff. In front of the cave, two powerful beasts face each other. One is a huge tiger-like beast, more than 5 meters in length, with bulging muscles rolling like a python, slender hair, and a whirlwind constantly blowing around. A pair of white long teeth protrude from the upper lip, much like the memory of previous lives. The saber-toothed tiger, but the body is much larger. Confronting Fierce Fang Tiger is a snow-white giant bear, which looks larger than Fierce Fang Tiger. If Fierce Fang Tiger is majestic, then this white bear looks very burly and heavy. The white bear's eyes are as clear as red crystals, and its limbs are on the ground, roaring at the fierce-toothed tiger in a low voice. A pair of small bears have a lot of emotions in their eyes, anger and despair. The white bear blocks the cave and does not leave, and a childish bear growls. From the hole in the ground, this is its newborn child. Golden creature, Ural white bear. The Ural white bear is a powerful side branch of the bear beasts. It has a strong frost talent and is also known as the ice prayer white bear. On the back, chest, and arms of the bear, there are several stripes of ice blue thick patterned skin, which is always lit with a faint blue haze. The frost and snow spray thin with each flicker of the ice blue pattern, which looks very psychedelic. But the character of the Ural white bear is completely opposite to its elegant appearance. The Ural white bear is very bloodthirsty and violent, and is a powerful solitary creature. This maternal Ural white bear has just finished giving birth and is in a very weak state. Fierce-toothed tiger roared and jumped forward suddenly, breaking the deadlock of the confrontation, and the tiger's claws swung openly, cutting out several huge wind blades. Creatures above the black iron level have powerful talents and abilities, and the fierce-toothed tiger is a beast dominated by wind. Ural white bear has bright ice patterns, and the upper limbs beat the ground fiercely. A half-meter thick ice wall suddenly rises, and the wind blade leaves huge claw marks on the ice wall with the sound of violent friction. Roar! The fierce-toothed tiger crossed the ice wall and bit at the head of the Ural white bear. The appearance of the Ural white bear is not as cumbersome as its body. Its arms are quickly raised. During the raising process, the ice patterns on the arms oscillates with ice blue ripples. A thick ice armor appeared, and it clicked after being bitten. Only a layer of broken ice was blown out, and the sharp teeth of the fierce-toothed tiger bit on the ice armor. The Ural white bear slapped the fierce-fanged tiger with a palm sideways, and with a muffled bang, it flew more than 10 meters away, and the air wave blasted the snow in the canopy. However, after a few laps on the ground, Fierce Fang Hu stood up, shaking his head, completely unharmed. The strength of the Ural white bear should be its strength, this bear is too weak. Ivo and Anthony were hiding in the woods not far away, and Anthony explained to Ivo. Ivo looked at the Ural white bear, with its elegant and wild appearance and powerful power, which made him feel close to the ice and snow. Demasha was awakened from his deep sleep. It's suitable for you. With this king's control of the frost element, you can get the most benefits when fusing frost creatures. Oh, are you finally getting benefits? Ivo nodded. Captain Anthony, I'm thinking about it, I want the Ural white bear for the first bloodline. Anthony coldly snorted, the Ural white bear is a very proud race. You choose gold level creatures the first time you merge. You can jump several levels. It's impossible to succeed. Don't think about it. Bronze level creatures are what you should consider. Fusion goals. Demasha sneered in Ivo's mind and said, don't worry, there is this king. As long as it is a frost creature, there is nothing you can't blend. Ivo must have a certain heart and insisted, I want it, are you not me or are simulacator or overbearing? What I want to challenge is the high degree of difficulty, and I will succeed if I don't keep the balance. Humph, since you insist, I will help you this time, remember only this time. Anthony shook his head and felt that Ivo was too naive. He didn't dare to merge with the gold level until he was 30 years old. He also failed twice. He felt that Ivo was really ignorant and wishful thinking. Knowing that it was impossible to succeed, he had to do something. This is stupid, and Anthony suddenly feels somewhat disheartened. The powerful bloodline of a golden creature, which is a juvenile simulacator eligible to covet. Anthony stood up slowly. Reading www.yunsha.com's tyrannical aura suddenly swept out. The Ural white bear and the fierce-toothed tiger who were fighting stopped fighting, and the two pairs of vigilant eyes looked in Anthony's direction. Anthony turned his head to look at Ivo, and said lightly, I'm optimistic, this is the transformation of the imitation family. A dazzling blood flashed in Anthony's eyes, and countless blue feathers grew out of his skin, and quickly covered his whole body. One of his hands stretched and widened, turning into a pair of white feathers covered under ice blue feathers. Wings with a wingspan of at least 8 meters. His body grew taller and bigger, his leather armor was broken, and his legs became slender bird legs. The head changes the most, the lips and nose stretched forward and hardened, turning into an olecranon, the eyes elongated into bird eyes, and the eyes turned into golden yellow vertical pupils. This change took only 2 seconds, and Anthony has become a Formaturi ice blue giant eagle, with ice blue feathers and flowing brilliance, like scales, harder than iron. There are 7 silver feathers on the tail, 3 to 4 meters long when dragged on the ground, and the tyrannical aura spreads out, cold and domineering, and the air screams under the powerful aura. A pair of golden eagle eyes stared at the shocking Ivo, his wings slapped, the strong wind lifted the snow, and a piece of ice hit Ivo's head. The cold feeling let Ivo know that this was not an illusion. This is Golden Eye Silver Frost Eagle. In the biological illustration book on the village chief's bookshelf, the gold-kneed silver frost eagle is a tyrannical existence classified as an amethyst-level creature, and can even challenge a small dragon. The paralysis of your transformation is a copy of Zayed, right? Ivo couldn't help but complain. Boom, the huge gold-kneed silver frost eagle suddenly spread its wings, standing proudly in the mountains. Ball Ticket UU Reading Book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to Read. The corpses of the fierce-toothed tiger are all over the ground. Ivo rubbed his eyes, a very powerful beast, under the storm of Anthony's attack, it could not last more than 10 seconds. Anthony quickly changed back to the original shape. The feathers were collected into the skin and disappeared without a trace, as if they had never appeared before. Also disappeared were his clothes. He calmly took out a set of spare clothes and put on them, saying, as a for the simulator, 2 things are necessary in the luggage, food and clothes. Iwo don't know why I have a hunch, I might like naked, running. Transformation is as natural for us as drinking water and eating, but it will continue to consume energy. The broken corpse floated with a cyan light spot, and it condensed into a cyan light group in the air. With a halo, it condensed into a thumb-sized cyan crystal. This is a black iron-level soul spar, the soul crystallization of a fierce-toothed tiger. Anthony stretched out his hand and put the soul spar away. The Ural white bear suddenly slipped into the hole with a chuckle, and Anthony curled his lips. This guy is scared. The 2 jumped out of the cave. It was a dark cave. The light blue halo of Ural white bear ice patterns illuminates the cave. There are large areas of blood from childbirth on the ground. The corners of the cave are covered with cold pine branches. The cub was sleeping soundly, and the giant ice prayer bear stood in front of the cub, roaring in a low voice. The red crystal-like bear's eyes showed a pleading mood. Anthony, it seems to be very honest. Ivo and the Ural white bear stared with big eyes. Then what do you do now? You have a better choice, Anthony grumbled to the cub. The resistance of the cub is very weak, and your success rate of swallowing will increase. Although the effect is far worse than that of adults, you can succeed at any rate. If I swallow it, will the cub die? 1/5 of the blood must be drawn away. After we swallow a creature that is not strong enough, it will weaken and die. The cub is dead, but this adult will not. Ivo nodded. Then I fuse adult bears, don't hurt their lives, and the effect of adult bears is better. Anthony sneered innocently and waved his hand. Whatever you want. Ivo stared at the Ural white bear. Gradually, there was throbbing in his blood, and many unprecedented images flashed in his mind. According to instinct, Ivo slashed his arm with a dagger, bleeding out blood. Ivo dipped his finger in blood, and drew the blood-colored ubiquitous 14-pointed star on the forehead of the Ural white bear. This is a 6-pointed star, a 5-point star. The triangle pattern is a complex high-level array with 13 overlaps. This kind of high-level magic array is only capable of portraying by grey-robed wizards and above, but the bloodline inheritance allows Ivo to master the painting method in an instant. The 14-pointed star of Abquis is an instinct immortalized by the ancestors in the blood of the descendants of the impersonator. Relying on the 14-pointed star, it can increase the success rate of blood fusion. The complex array that ordinary people would feel dizzy at a glance was drawn on the forehead of the Ural white bear. Ivo took a deep breath, cut his wrist, and pressed the wound of his wrist to the forehead of the Ural white bear. The moment he touched it, it looked like a firework. The dazzling blood mist exploded on the circle, rippling endlessly. The Ural white bear whispered in pain, a drop of thick blood oozing out from all the pores. The snow-white hair was smudged into blood, and the 14-pointed star was bright with blood, emitting strange fluctuations. The blood of the white bear floated, and a blood-colored Ural white bear slowly formed over the 14-pointed star, only the size of a palm, but with a strange attraction that made Ivo unable to look away. The 14-pointed star broke away from the bear's head and turned into a floating plane array, supporting the little blood bear to rotate slowly. The magic circle shrinks by 1 point every time it rotates, and the blood bear becomes more lifelike, like pure bloodstone crystals. The last turn of the 14-pointed star turned white light into the blood bear, loading the mysterious effect on the blood bear. The little blood bear roared silently up to the sky, melted like ice and snow splashed with hot oil, and slammed into Ivo's wrist wound, and entered his body. Boom! The extreme cold exploded in his body, and for a moment Ivo thought he had become an ice block. His bones quickly became brittle in the extreme cold, his blood almost froze, and his internal organs crazily twitched. Ivo vomited a mouthful of gastric juice, his mouth was full of blood, and he curled up in pain. The blood vessels under the skin were clearly raised and turned into ice blue, as if Ivo was covered with small ice blue snakes, and he could hear the rapid swish of blood in the blood vessels. It hurts. The fusion of the blood of the simulacrum not only gains the ability to transform, but also fundamentally changes the body structure, possessing the talent, appearance, and physical body of the fused race. Demacia was not at all anxious, and said leisurely, "Forbearance, this king is helping you." A cooler breath came out of my mind, and instantly suppressed the resistance of the white bear's blood. Every cell in Ivo's body is like a hungry man who has been hungry for 3 days, gobbled up the blood essence of the white bear. There is an inexplicable feeling of satisfaction. Changes began. Ivo's bones made a cracking sound, and his body quickly rose and widened with a click, his body expanded, and his muscles undulated like a ground dragon turning over, looking like dough being constantly kneaded by the chef. Anthony's always calm face finally changed his expression, and said in disbelief, "How is this possible?" "It succeeded, that's a golden creature." The raised blood vessels on both sides of Ivo's cheek burst open, but no blood flowed out. Instead, a cloud of frost was exploded. The frost quickly condensed on his face, turning into 6 icy blue patterns like tiger whiskers, 3 on one side. Eyeballs widened. The color of the left eye did not change, but the deep part of the pupil of the right eye lit up with a hint of crimson, and then the crimson dyed the right eye completely. The eyeball turned into a red crystal-like color, one blue and one red, and the pupils became two-color. Ivo's hair was originally pure black long hair, but the hair was gradually shortened at this time. The pure black hair color gradually became white, and soon became a short white hair. A series of strange changes lasted for an hour. Finally, the pain gradually faded, and Ivo's face fell loose, but what followed was an instinctive call. Ivo's eyes were wide open, his hair grew, his stature expanded, and he quickly turned into a small Ural white bear, only 3 meters in his head, but this is because Ivo himself is only 10 years old. As he grows older, the effect of the transformation will gradually increase. Complete. The tyrannical and barbaric power swelled in his body. He felt that in his current form, he could beat 10 of his original selves, which was not the same level. Ivo understood clearly in his heart, this is the power after transformation. Ivo rolled his eyes and slapped Anthony to the side with a palm. He snorted in the face of the sneak attack, but did not evade. He took a palm and involuntarily stepped back and said in surprise, "What a tyrannical force, it is more than twice as strong as my transformation when I was 10 years old, and the bloodline of the gold-level creature is indeed powerful." Ivo lifted his transformation, and it was as natural as eating and drinking. After returning to his normal body shape, Ivo felt that his physical fitness had been greatly enhanced. The frequency of the heartbeat has increased several times, and the strength of the beating is very vigorous. The blood pumped out is flowing quickly in the blood vessels, full of strength, and it feels like a new life. This feels very interesting. Demacia's voice sounded at the right time. The simulator's fusion of blood is to turn iron ore into gold ore. Physical fitness is fundamentally enhanced. The ratio of half a cup of water to half a bucket of water is the same, but there is a big difference in quantity. It will be more difficult for you to break through the awakening stage. Of course, this means that your future potential is stronger. This is a good thing. Ivo saw his current image from the ice in the cave. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. The appearance has changed slightly. The original appearance is ordinary, but now it has thick eyebrows and big eyes, with 6 ice beard tattoos on both cheeks. It looks a bit like a big cat, but it is matched with a short white and red and blue double. Hitomi, there is a bit of murderous air. The height rises to 1.7 meters, the shoulders are broad, the muscles are like tangled tree vines, clear and huge, like a strong little bear. The skin is as white as snow, and the skin is white and pink, and the skin is healthy. It is not weak, but has. The species comes from the masculinity in the cold winter. Ivo was shocked. Fuck, I'm Hokage when I dyed yellow hair. The bloodline of the impersonator has unlimited possibilities in changing his appearance. Don't talk about Naruto, the 4 emperors are not a problem, Bigamom is fine. The two jumped out of the hole and returned to the snow forest. Anthony caught a glimpse of Ivo's excited face and smiled coldly. I'm very excited, guess what is our simulator called by other races in the outside world? Ivo tilted his head, fighting race. Anthony shook his head, no. Transformers. What the hell, guess again. Ivo thought of the village chief's bookshelf Epic of Odin's Continent, which praised powerful races, such as elves, dragons, and giants. It has a nice title, Born to be Strong. None, you remember, and never forget how other races call us. Anthony turned and walked into the wind and snow, his voice wafting from afar, they called us, hybrid, kind. Ivo touched his chin, but didn't feel angry, in a sense, it's really correct. You reading book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to Read. Gain the blood of the Ural white bear. Ivo's physical strength has increased tremendously, infinitely close to the first level awakened warrior, but he is still an elite warrior, and what has improved is his physical talent. The interval between the merging of the new race of the mimicry is 10 years, and this is the first Ivo to merge the blood. Back to the village, the two met at the entrance of the village, the shadow uncle covered in black robes. Anthony twitched the corner of his mouth, took the initiative to retreat and leave, so that only a more powerful figure can make the strong jealous. Uncle Shadow stepped forward, crossed Ivo, and whispered, "Come with me." He was thin, and his voice was hoarse, like a grinding wheel rubbing in his throat. Ivo got rid of Anthony's excitement and was immediately wiped out, with a wry smile on his face. Uncle Ying didn't let him rest at all. Ivo could only adjust his mentality quickly and follow Ying to enter the mountains again. Walking from early morning to dusk, the two came to a half-moon-shaped valley. Ivo's eyes widened suddenly, in disbelief. There were more than a dozen tents under the valley, and the steaming smoke was cut into pieces by the wind and snow. Fog. Ivo visited this valley half a year ago, when it was still empty and without any living things. Uncle Ying said slowly, "Some time ago, an adventure team entered the mountains to explore. It was a team of 14 people, 2 formal fighters, 1 elite fighter, 2 swordsman apprentices, and 3 believers in the of fire. The priest of Earlius, an apprentice of shadow magic, an apprentice of water magic, and 4 crescent-level Oxu werewolves." Ivo blinked, "So what?" Uncle Shadow said lightly, "Kill them all, the tribe does not welcome outsiders." Ivo was taken aback, "It's so unreasonable." Uncle Shadow's tone was flat, "This world never makes sense with our mockers." Ivo helplessly, "Uncle Ying, your thoughts are too gloomy, what are you going to teach me?" "The way of the assassin." Ivo was speechless, and pointed to Hariken's hammer. "Have you ever seen an assassin use a hammer?" "I have seen it." Ivo was even more speechless. "You have 3 days. After 3 days, I don't want to see anyone other than you living here. Only by facing a strong enemy can I understand the true meaning of assassination." The shadow said calmly. Ivo shook his head repeatedly, "I refuse." Ying did not speak. "These people have no hatred with me, I can't kill them. As a Miyoshi youth growing up under the red flag, it's okay to kill some beasts and kill people indiscriminately. Forget it. The Frost Wolf has no hatred with you, either. Where is this the same?" Ivo said helplessly, "You are secretly changing the concept, and I don't eat people." Uncle Shadow turned around and looked directly at Ivo's eyes, "Okay." Ivo looked puzzled, "Uncle Shadow is so good to talk?" Uncle Ying let out a terrible laugh, and said hoarsely, "You choose another training, don't kill, then be killed. Within 3 days, you must protect them from my assassination. Living people other than you are qualified to receive my training." There was a flower in front of Ivo, the shadow had disappeared, and he murmured, "So headstrong." Ivo suddenly thought of something. More important than protecting them, how to gain trust is more important. Don't be fooled as soon as you jump out. In his mind, Dimasha said lightly, the cold night mountain range is recognized as a restricted area of life. It is impossible for such a low-end adventure team to enter. These people are all captured and used as a tool to train you. Ivo is speechless, good fellow, so bloody. There were two warriors watching the night in front of the tent. Ivo calmed down and walked straight up. Dimasha said silently in his mind, "Go straight, they will treat you as an enemy, can you be smart?" Ivo smiled happily, "Just walk upright and don't persuade. To win the trust of others, how can I hide in the dark? Besides, we are also urinary people, believe it or not, it is not me who is dead anyway." The two fighters found Ivo, they became nervous instantly, awakened their companions, and looked at Ivo who was alone. "Who are you?" More than a dozen people slowly approached Ivo in a fan shape, ready to move. As long as Ivo showed suspicious behavior, they would rush forward. This group of people speaks lingua franca. Ivo learned the language and characters from the village chief when he was a child. At this time, he could understand and answer, "I am a hunter. The supply is running out. This mountain is too dangerous. If I'm not wrong, your goal should be the same as mine, leaving this place." The group of people looked at each other. The captain in silver-grey chainmail came out, looked at Ivo up and down, and suddenly drew out the long sword. "There can be no hunter in this ghost place, take him down." A warrior swept across the battle axe with both hands. Ivo shook his hand and drew his spear to press the battle axe. The warrior drew a few times but couldn't move. He looked at Ivo who was able to do so with amazement. The strength was not the same level at all. From the resistance coming from under the spear, Ivo clearly perceives that this man is an official fighter, with average physical fitness and many flaws in his combat skills. He can see it at a glance. The results of 4 years of practice are reflected at this time. Is it an awakening warrior? This thought flashed through the captain's mind. If the awakening warrior was with them, it would be much more likely to get out of this ghost place. Ivo rolled his eyes and shouted, "Since you don't trust me, then I will leave. Is it that easy to walk?" A witchcraft apprentice in a mage's robe covered his whole body in a cold voice, raised his hand to spill a piece of grey bone meal, quickly chanted a spell, raised his hand and pointed. Ivo's feet suddenly tightened, lowered his head and saw that his feet were smashed. The little purple shadow sticking out from the ground grabbed it. Shadow Raluan's grip. "Catch him, maybe he knows the way to leave," the witchcraft apprentice yelled. 2 swordsman apprentices swung their swords, and 2 translucent crescent sword auras flew in. Ivo took out the warhammer, twisted his wrist, and a shock wave buzzed out and collided with the sword aura in midair. The bangs extinguished each other, and the strong wind blew everyone's clothes and hunted. This is the swordsman, he can send out a long-range slash with his hand, Ivo thought inwardly. Dimasha, the swordsman's lethality is the strongest outside of the mage. A strong swordsman can even cut off a golden dragon. That's right, by the way, aren't you also a swordsman? Dimasha is inexplicable, I am a demon, how can I be a swordsman? Don't lie to me, I still remember your R skill is to volley and drop a big sword, how domineering. What are you talking about, Ivo's heart is full of sadness, and no one can answer in this other world. Both feet were hit by witchcraft and couldn't move. Ivo glanced at the captain's entangled expression. Knowing that the current attack was mostly temptation, Ivo deliberately pretended to be angry. "Why don't you let me go?" 4 werewolf hunters raised their crossbows at the same time, and 4 crossbow arrows were shot at swiftly. Ivo's warhammer hit a pestle, and the Iron Hill fortress covered the whole body, barely unscathed, and everyone was surprised. Ivo looked at the witchcraft apprentice, raised his hand and threw the spear, howling loudly, and practicing the troll spear throwing technique to strengthen Ivo's accuracy and wrist strength. The group of adventurers was shocked and the captain screamed, "Stop it, this is a misunderstanding, stop it." The three priests raised their hands at the same time. 3 red fire shields were stacked in front of the witchcraft apprentice, but they were pierced by the spear, which only slightly slowed their speed. The water magic apprentice quickly cast a spell, and a stream of water appeared out of thin air to the witchcraft apprentice. When he rushed away, he was out of danger, and the spear plunged deeply into the tree and penetrated the trunk. The captain wiped his cold sweat, "This friend, I just misunderstood. Finally, there is a living person in this ghost place. He is very strong, and everyone aims to leave here. It should not be an enemy. In this case, Iwo the combat power is a very useful help to them." Ivo rolled his eyes, "If I want to deal with you, hide in the dark and make a sneak attack, and promise to kill one with a spear, I need to come out." "Well, it's our recklessness, I'm really sorry, I'm the team captain Morian, you." The captain said. "My name is Ivo. We are talking about my real name. If you know me, you will be hell. Brother Ivo, please go into the tent and cook on the fire to drive away the cold." Ivo let out a sigh of relief, and finally gained initial trust. It's impossible to stop Uncle Shadow on his own, and taking them away quickly is the only way. It's not that there is no other way, but with the current level of trust, other methods will not be accepted. For example, Ivo wants them to disperse and flee. These people will definitely not follow the advice. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly appeared behind the water magic apprentice. With a light stroke of the dagger, it quietly took the magic apprentice's life, and then disappeared. "Who is it?" the witchcraft apprentice beside him shouted in fright. Others followed the sound. The magic apprentice had already lost his life. There was not even the slightest scream. Death fell silently. There was a chill in everyone's heart, and the murderer didn't know who it was. Ivo was dumbfounded. Reading www.yuyugonshu.com must be Uncle Shadow. It took less than a second from appearance to disappearance, and he assassinated a person instantly, and Ivo didn't notice it at all. While thinking about it, everyone suddenly surrounded Ivo and shouted, "You must be the ghost, catch him." Ivo suppressed the discomfort of seeing the dead, and said angrily, "What is my business?" Morian also doubted, "It was fine before, as soon as you showed up, we had casualties. It is absolutely related to you, everyone, catch him." Ivo cursed secretly, Uncle Shadow killed him at the right time to invalidate the trust he had gained. Sure enough, Uncle Shadow would not allow himself to pass the training so easily. While the witchcraft apprentice sang, Harikon's warmer hit the chisel, Ivo forced everyone away, protruding from the encirclement, and rushed into the dark forest. At this time, the witchcraft apprentice had finished casting the spell, and he was still in the grip of Luo Luoan. Self-belief, it's useless to break through. After being hit by my witchcraft, he can't move anymore. Hurry up and catch up with him. Everyone hurried to catch up, but Ivo disappeared. The witchcraft apprentice couldn't believe it. How can he break free from my witchcraft? Even the awakening stage will be blocked for a while. Morian gritted his teeth fiercely, "Don't chase, I don't know the danger ahead." At the moment when he was hit by the witchcraft, Ivo transformed into a Ural white bear. Unsurprisingly, his tyrannical force broke the shadow-bound hand and quickly fled the scene. After running away, Ivo lifted his transformation, changed his clothes and frowned, thinking, "Since I can't get into the squad, I can only use other means. Hey, I have to think about how to protect them when they are chased and killed. Where is the promised trust?" Reading book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to Read. Morian was scared. After fainting inexplicably, he woke up again in this dangerous mountain range. He used to venture in the perilous Landry wetland, but compared to this cold mountain range, Landry wetland is like a small garden. In the past 2 days, some people in the team have been cut their throats continuously, and they don't even know what the enemy is, only the apprentices of witchcraft and hunters are left alive. There were only 3 people left in the 14-person team, and they were on the verge of collapse, wandering numbly, losing their sense of direction, and freezing their bodies. More terrible than the severe cold are the powerful beasts. Some companions died in the mouth of the wolves. Some companions were torn off their heads by the swooping giant eagle. Of course, the most terrifying thing was the death-like black shadow. As long as it appeared, it was a decision. The fate of someone. Ivo hid under the cold pine in front of the 3 of them, squeezed the warhammer, and suddenly rushed out. The 3 people's perception was already dull, and there was no immediate counterattack. Ivo's sneak attack knocked out the most threatening witchcraft apprentice. "It's really you!" Morian shouted angrily, severely slashing with his two-handed sword, but his weak body distorted his movements. Ivo dodged and quickly counterattacked, knocking Morian out with a backhand hammer. Morian is an elite fighter. It stands to reason that Ivo will not be so easy to solve him, but Morian's spirit is close to collapse, unable to use proficient combat skills, and he was defeated by Ivo with a single move. The last person roared fiercely. Iron-grey hair grew crazily all over his body. His figure quickly grew taller and bigger. His violent and savage muscles burst out. One of his hands turned into wolf claws, and his claws were like daggers, shining sharply. Iron color, double pupil crystal yellow. Oxu werewolves are a well-known dark knight race. They are the more pure blood among the 10 branches of werewolves. The crystal yellow wolf eyes are their symbol. The werewolf's 2 claws pressed Hariken's hammer, and the claws dig out the sparks on the silver hammer head, making a sour rubbing sound, and the big mouth that changed into a wolf's mouth swiftly bites Ivo's head, with sharp teeth like a jungle of blades. The stench is irritating. The werewolf's transformation ability is also a heritage of blood. This werewolf hunter is only at the level of an official warrior, but his bloodline ability has been initially developed. The increase in the transformation of the Crescent Oxu werewolf makes him equivalent to half an awakening warrior. However, the physique of Ivo, who is fused with the Ural white bear, is beyond ordinary, and the werewolf's advantage has been weakened by more than half, not to mention that the opponent is still weak at this time. On the side of Ivo's body, the Oxu werewolf's bite like a shark's teeth missed the air, shaking the warhammer. The shock wave forced the werewolf back a few steps, and then lightly stepped on his footsteps, reaching his arms with all his strength, and digging his abdomen with all his strength. The blow was like clouds and flowing water, and the werewolf was too late to defend. He was knocked down by a hammer, and his abdomen was sunken. The werewolf roared and howled. Taking advantage of his inability to fight back, Ivo hit the werewolf several times in a row and finally knocked the werewolf out. If you want to escape from the assassination of Uncle Shadow, probably this method is safer. Ivo transformed into a Ural white bear, grabbed the 3 of them, drove through the mountains and forests, and quickly came to a crypt, which was the most suitable location Ivo found in the past 2 days. Put the 3 people into the crypt, and then with the strength of the Ural white bear, a huge rock was moved to block the entrance of the crypt, and then the traces were covered with snow. Finally, Ivo drilled into the crypt from the gap left in advance, and then blocked the gap. "Come, wait quietly. In a closed space, if Uncle Ying wants to kill these 3 people, Ivo will definitely find him. It's always okay like this." Demacia smiled disdainfully and said, "This method is useless against the real big assassin. Shadow sneak, dark jump, and assassination mark. Any of these 3 assassins' signature abilities can crack your method, let alone. I perceive that the guy called Shadow is a powerful warrior above level 10. There are hundreds of occupations divided by combat methods in this world. They are called combat occupations. Assassins, hunters, thieves, and berserkers are all combat occupations, and the 6 cornerstone systems are called main occupations. The main profession is divided into levels of strength, and the combat profession is the way of fighting. The 2 main professions of warrior and swordsman can learn the combat skills and abilities of assassins and become professional assassins. Ivo was distressed. I can't help it. I don't even know where Uncle Shadow is, so I can only wait and see. Demacia proudly said, although the power of this king is still very weak, but this is a world of ice and snow, this king can cover up your breath. Then hurry up. Why should this king help you? You can't pay the rent, do you want to live for nothing? Demacia was helpless, exuding the power of the devil, and using the illusion of confusion. Ivo felt a little change in the surroundings, but it couldn't be said. This king has superimposed the illusion. Before I stop, no one can see the existence of this crypt. Ivo laughed, it's awesome, Desi. Demacia was furious in an instant, what do you call me? Ivo coughed twice, illusion. The last day passed quickly. Ivo pushed away the rock and walked out, letting Demacia dispel the vision. Walking in the woods for a while, sure enough, Uncle Ying came up by himself, and Ivo smiled, Uncle Ying, I have passed the training. Uncle Ying stared at him for a long time, and didn't seem to know how Ivo did it. Ivo was so hairy by him, he covered his chest with both hands, and said vigilantly, what are you looking at? Uncle Ying retracted his gaze, it's nothing. You got the wrong answer, you should say what you are doing, and then I say try another one, if you say try, try. Uncle Ying waved his hand to interrupt him, stop talking nonsense, since you did it, follow me. What am I talking about? The furthest distance in the world is that I spit in front of you, but you can't take it anymore, trash baby. Ivo curled his lips and followed Uncle Ying. Those 3 are still alive. Well, I hid them in the crypt. Since I survived, I let them go. Ivo smiled, what if they find the tribe? What can I find? That is, relying on the strength of those 3 people, they can't make waves. After all, just pulling out a team of the same clan can sweep the the world. The direction the 2 of them are heading is a towering snow peak, and there is a narrow-stepped mountain road. I don't know who built it. The more they go up, the colder the wind becomes, and Ivo is faltering. He looked forward, okay, Uncle Ying didn't move at all. How do you say that sentence? He is strong by him, the breeze is blowing on the hills, he is horizontal by him, and the moon is shining on the river. Uncle Ying, did you practice 9 suns? From just now, you have been saying things that people don't understand. After walking for a while, the 2 came to the top of the mountain, and Ivo was shocked by the scene in front of him. On the top of the mountain, there was an ice-blue palace, but it was already dilapidated. 32 ivory stone gate pillars collapsed. 44 steps were buried by ice and snow. The 10-meter-high golden palace gate was mostly broken. Blocks were scattered on the ice-stone floor in the palace, and the decayed breath was blown out from the hollow door of the palace. Ivo looked curiously, this is a dilapidated temple. Follow me. Ivo followed Uncle Shadow into the temple. The inside of the temple was not dim. He looked up. There was an irregular hole that occupies half of the dome. The sun shines in. There is a porous black-brown meteorite in the center of the palace. The ice-stone ground is full of cracks and deep scars after violent impact. It is obvious that this meteorite is the culprit for penetrating the dome. In the innermost part of the palace, there is a 10-meter-high stone sculpture of a god, the goddess of ice and snow, Mercers, holding the ice scepter in his left hand and the horn of winter in his right, wearing a magnificent robe. The stonemason who carves the face must be a master, carve the cold and beautiful face to life. This is the temple of the goddess of ice and snow. Ivo came to the stone sculpture and remembered a sentence from the village chief's collection of northern gods, the races living in ice and snow are all believers of the northern gods. The goddess of ice and snow is one of the 4 main gods of the northern gods. It is said in the book that the northern gods system governs all the white kingdoms covered by ice and snow. The northern gods is the most common belief in Phrygia. Ivo lowered his head and put his hands on the other shoulder. Slightly bowed, this is the ritual in circle when praying to the northern gods. The prayers in Ivo's memory book are jerky, ice and snow are blood, and cold wind is breathing. I enshrine the congeal beliefs of frozen ground and lead me. Entering that door and seeing the world, there is no dirt, filth, only purity, pure whiteness, and innocence. The believer will sing the white shelter of the northern gods on every page of life and maintain the highest and pure glory until the next in the era. The devout pray for your blessings and condolences, and crown mercers. Sure enough, the compulsion of the believers is high. The believers build temples for the gods to worship their pious beliefs and pray for the gods' blessings. The most important facility is the idols. It is said that the more realistic the idols, the more likely the gods will manifest. The last end of the prayer disappeared in the cold wind. Ivo raised his head and looked at the statue of the snow goddess. The dusk left mottled light and shadow on the face of the snow goddess. Uncle Shadow listened to Ivo's prayer, and said lightly, "Here, I will tell you the truth, which can also be called the answer." Ivo wondered why Ying let him come to the ruined temple, and what answer could there be here. Uncle Shadow came to Ivo, stretched out his nails and scratched Ivo's arm, smeared with blood, flicked his fingers, the blood turned into blood beads, and shot at the ice and snow goddess statue. Snap! The drop of blood turned into a blood spot on the right pupil of the statue. The statue of the snow goddess suddenly had a change that shocked Ivo. The statue of the goddess lit up with a hazy white light, as if covered with a layer of tulle. The towering nobility and elegance of a snow-capped mountain, and the power of God like an invisible wave flushed Ivo's heart, making him have the urge to worship from his heart. Idol appearance. Ying grabbed Ivo's shoulder and stopped his attempt to worship. The ice and snow goddess did not open his mouth, but the majestic, noble and indifferent voice buzzed in the temple, without the slightest emotion, with a hollow echo, "Dirty race, dare to blaspheme the northern gods." Ying did not speak, and looked up at the statue of the ice and snow goddess, expressionless, as if he had expected this situation. Ivo couldn't believe it. What kind of stuff is this? Mercers, with ice and snow as the inscription, order the believers to erase the dirty race from the northern kingdom of God. Ying said, "Come and try." The ice and snow goddess statue has bright eyes, the noble icy blue light is as clear as ice crystals, and the invisible fluctuations are far emitted. The violent roar came from the distant mountains, echoing in bursts. In the icy country, all primitive creatures, that is, beasts, are believers in the northern gods. Ivo looked into the distance. Hundreds of small black dots rose among the mountains. The powerful creatures with flying ability quickly flew towards them, and the hundreds of small black dots gradually grew larger. Ivo was dumbfounded. What happened? Ying turned to face the palace gate, and the black dragon scales turned up from under the skin like a leaf. His thin body suddenly swelled nearly 100 times, crawling on the ground, his feet turned into black dragon claws, and the tail vertebrae stretched steadily. The dragon's tail swayed out. The arms swelled and suddenly spread out like a fan, turning into a pair of black dragon wings tens of meters wide, breaking the walls around the temple. The neck turned into a thick snake neck, the head turned into a huge dragon head, the pitch-black bone spurs were like a battle helmet covering the head, and the golden vertical pupils were cold and merciless, and roared terrifying shocks at hundreds of small black spots in the distance. Sonic! Within a second, Uncle Ying transformed into the legendary Black Dragon. Ivo watched the dragon roar wave spread far away, the air ripples trembled like ripples, and the place where the shock waves passed by, the small black spots fell like rain. After the sound wave dissipated, the small black spots flying in the distant mountains seemed to have been wiped from the sky scroll by a rag. Dirty lower race! The voice of the ice goddess was indifferent and empty, as if it was just explaining an objective fact. The defeat of hundreds of ice and snow creatures could not make Mercer's consciousness even the slightest emotion. The black dragon glanced back at the idol. The dragon's tail swept across and shattered the idol. The light disappeared in an instant. The fragmented idol fell to the ground and became lifeless. It turned back to an ordinary stone, as if the manifestation just now was just an illusion. Heilong looked down at Ivo, who was thinking about the scenes just now, and uttered an ancient, solemn voice, "This is the answer." Ivo was speechless. Is there really a in this world? After I asked, I felt like I was, there are even demons like Demacia, how can there be no gods? Uncle Ying said indifferently, in the eyes of human beings, we are demons walking in the world, and in the eyes of the gods, we are nasty flies. Our faith is a disgusting blasphemy against the gods, and the gods will not return our piety. This it is the insight gained by the ancestors in exchange for their blood. Ivo was very puzzled. Why do gods hate us? Uncle Shadow's tone is indifferent, whether it is a man or a god. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com has desire and hope. The preface of the Book of the Church has never deceived the faithful of believers with empty and false doctrines, and the gods walk in the world, guide faith to the true direction. It is said that ancient gods built the world and created races. Creating life is the realm of gods, and our existence has set foot in taboos. Humans have achieved the great cause of gods, when humans can create species. The gods of faith have lost their supremacy. Therefore, from the beginning of our birth, we have stood on the opposite side of the gods and on the opposite side of the faith. Our ancestors understood this and lived in seclusion in this bitter cold place. Otherwise, we have already been issued oracles by the gods, ordering believers to exterminate the race. Ivo frowned and said, the gods are so domineering. If God is not overbearing, why do people awe? Uncle Shadow lifted his transformation, put on a black robe, opened his arms. For us, the entire world is our enemy. Is it really okay to have such a simple and crude world view? Ivo was speechless. A race must first feel that it is noble in order to have the destiny of not being enslaved. We carry dirty blood, but we have an infinite future. Uncle Shadow looked at Ivo. This is the answer I gave you. Ivo grinned. Are you trying to forcefully shape my three views? If we didn't insist on Majet, you might have really been brainwashed by you. Uncle Shadow nodded. This is my teaching to you. Ivo felt a little tired from standing, and sat down cross-legged. Then when I become stronger than you, can I take what you are saying now as fart? Uncle Shadow stared at Ivo for a long time, then smiled dumbly. Also, you reading book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to read. Seeing the manifestation of the gods, the materialistic heart is faltering. Down the mountain, Uncle Ying said, Ivo, you are not suitable for learning the way of the assassin. Ivo nodded, I prefer to smash others with a hammer than lurking in the dark. Then I can only teach you some simple and practical things. Uncle Shadow drew out the animal bone dagger from Ivo's waist. The dagger is my best weapon. I will teach you a combat technique. Ivo was taken aback. Isn't it a genre of combat skills? It's just a combat technique, but this combat technique is enough for you to use for a long time. Uncle Shadow stabs casually. It seems a very simple action, and the speed is not fast. The strange thing is that Ivo didn't see the line of the dagger to attack, which made Ivo think of skipping frames inexplicably, and there was no process at all. This combat technique is called instant stabbing. Whether it is an assassination or a close combat, the instant stabbing is a must-kill. The trajectory cannot be distinguished. It seems simple, but it consumes a lot of physical strength. Use it 3 more times and you will lose the strength. Uncle Shadow explained the trick to Ivo in detail. Instant stab is a combat skill that has no genre. There are many such combat skills, but they are very extreme, either very weak or very strong. Instant stab belongs to the latter. Although the instant stab looks very simple, there are thousands of combinations of capacity and stab trajectory. The more proficient you are, the greater the power you can play. This combat skill is almost equivalent to a genre, and it is very profound. The most terrifying part of the instant stab is that it is difficult to defend. Even if Ivo is not an assassin, he can still achieve the kill effect if he suddenly activates it in close combat. However, the stamina consumed is also huge and can only be used as a killer move. I have told you the method, you practice hard by yourself, I don't need to teach you anything. Uncle Ying left after teaching the combat skills. Uncle Ying is really boring. Ivo thought for a long time, thinking that Uncle Ying was a silent and cold assassin. He didn't expect that he was actually an angry young man with a cynical heart, or it could be indignant or angry old also said. Uncertain, who knows how old he is. Uncle Shadow is gone, his enlightenment training is over, Ivo is a little excited, these 4 years are really not a life for people, and finally he can go home and have a good rest. Back to the tribe, Ivo's vision gradually changed as his strength increased. I didn't think it before, but now I see that almost every member of the tribe is full of power and has a very strong strength. Obviously, I have great power, but I have to live in seclusion. Everyone is aggrieved. Ivo thought in his mind. His ambitions are not high, and his ideas are simple. In Ivo's view, strength is the same as money, enough is enough. Demacia sneered at Ivo's views. There is no end to being strong. As long as he does not become the strongest, his strength will never be enough. When he returned to the house, only to find that the room was noisy, Ivo's face changed and he walked in quickly. Mok, you must apologize to me and compensate. Mok's face was ugly, the burly Burman grabbed Mok by the collar and yelled at Mok, Bearman's child chat, clutching his hands and glaring at Mok. Ivo calmly asked, what's the matter? Boy, your father scalded my child, Burman yelled, if you don't apologize or make compensation today, don't even want to get out of this door. Ivo squatted down and reached out to touch Chat's head, but the bear kid hid and stared at Ivo angrily. He has not forgotten the shame of being beaten by Ivo 2 years ago. Ivo frowned, retracted his hand, and looked at Chat's wound. The palm was full of blisters, as if he had caught a high-temperature object, but it was not too serious. Ivo turned to look at Mok, his eyes questioning. Mok explained, I was hitting the iron just now, and I left for a while. I didn't know that Chat was coming in. He grabbed the stove and got burned. Burman sneered, you are shirking responsibility. That is the truth. Burman said angrily, you are despicable than the goblin in Bendham Basin. Why did Chitta ran to your house? You definitely hurt him. Ivo understands his father's character and would never do such a thing. Ivo turned to look at the stove. He was taken aback for a while, and then he looked carefully for a while. Suddenly he turned angrily and turned to look at Chat, coldly. Asked, why did you come to my house just now? Charter scratched his neck and said, Uncle Mok obviously brought me here. Ivo stretched his finger to the stove, what's the matter with the jerky inside? It hasn't been burnt, it proves that it was put in soon, and said. Did you come here quietly while my father left, and threw the grain of my house in? Chatter's expression was flustered, and his heart was crossed, and he said nonchalantly, who told you to beat me 2 years ago, it was all your fault. Ivo suddenly understood that his guess was indispensable, and then his anger rose. He dared to be that this kid came to their house to make trouble, burned their precious food, accidentally burned himself, but took Burman to the wicket first to sue. Ivo looked at Burman, Uncle Burman, things are already clear, it's Chatter's fault. Bearman's answer was beyond Ivo's expectation, and he said brutally, I don't care who is right or wrong. My child is injured. You must apologize and come up with an explanation. Uncle can bear it, but my aunt can't bear it, my aunt can bear it, I can't bear it either. Your kid doesn't care if he makes mistakes. If he accidentally hurts himself, it will be counted on us. Why don't you go to heaven? Is gravity unable to catch you? Burman pushed Ivo away, and said stiffly, the first rule of the clan, those who deliberately hurt the same clan will be expelled by the tribe. I will go to the village chief to complain and expel you from the tribe. Ivo looked at Burman coldly, thinking about why Burman was so entangled. Maybe the favor came for no reason, but there must be a reason for the disgust. I only heard of love at first sight and never heard of hatred at first sight. Of course he looks too ugly. Can create miracles. Ivo suddenly remembered that Mork had mentioned before that Burman and him were rivals in love, and finally lost to his father, so that Burman was deliberately finding fault. Don't think about quibbling, you have to pay compensation and apologize. What if you don't give it? Burman sneered, then you will never change any ice rice from my hands. Your second uncle, the threat is level, give you a thumbs up. Ivo with hands on hips, what compensation do you want? I want all ironware and jerky. Ivo smiled angrily, why don't you say you want our house? Can. Your uncle, we cannot compensate, you are blackmail. Burman angrily smiled, well, my ice rice will never be supplied to you in the future, I will tell you all, whoever exchanges ice rice with you, I will not supply anyone. Burman is a large ice rice planter in the tribe. He produces 70% of the ice rice and has a high status in the tribe. Ivo was furious, it's all of the same clan, you play so well? Not to mention that this matter is not our responsibility at all, and you should have a limit for unreasonable troubles. Was arguing, a member of the same family ran in a panic. He was relieved to see Burman, and said anxiously, Burman, your wife has given birth. Go and see. Burman's face changed drastically, ignoring the dispute with Ivo, pulling Chat hurried home. Mork coughed twice, Ivo, follow along and see if I can help. Mork was a little worried that Ivo would make trouble. Unexpectedly, Ivo calmed down. Although he was reluctant, he nodded, I know. Now, let me see. Seeing that Ivo was not dazzled by anger, Mork was a little relieved. After all, Ivo's soul is an adult. Although this adult is a playful, sometimes more playful and detached than a child, he has his own rules. Conflicts and differences can be resolved later, and major events related to the new life can't be blinded. Do a few things. Following Burman, the doctor's mother-in-law in the tribe walked out of the house holding the child, and anxious Burman said, the birth is smooth, the baby's vitality is fragile, and the sacrifice needs to be carried out immediately. I see. Burman carefully picked up the weak baby and hurried to the stone statue of Dimasia outside the village. Ivo was a little puzzled and asked in his mind, Old German, why does he carry the baby to worship your statue? Dimasia woke up, you'll know later. Soon the entire tribe learned of the situation. For the sparsely populated clan of simulators, every newborn is an important event. The tribe members gathered in front of the totem. Burman was already kneeling with the baby in his arms. In front of the stone statue, there were sacrificial prayers in their mouths, and the tribe members covered their chests with one hand, bowed slightly, and chanted with Burman. Ivo looked left and right, and poked Bogota's belly, Boss Bogota, why don't you take care of the baby first and worship the demon totem first? Pogadu sighed, this is one of the 3 major curses in our blood. Infants are fragile. If you don't rely on blessings or extremely precious medicines, the newborn baby of the impersonator will definitely die. Ivo was shocked, how did this curse come about? Is it also an ancestor? No, this was done by the enemies of the ancestors, Bogado said with pressure, weight and anger. At the end of the dark night, the simulators became independent races, but due to their overpowering potential, most races were aroused. Be vigilant, the lesson of the Dark Age is at hand, they want to eliminate all threats, so 3 titled witch kings of different races sacrificed their lives and imposed 3 eternal curses on the bloodline of the impersonator. One of them, deprived of the vitality of the infant, only the blessing of the gods and precious potions can be saved. At this time, Uncle Ying answered the conversation and said lightly, remember the attitudes of the gods, they will not respond to our prayers, and will not bless our newborns, so we can only sacrifice to the demons, and the gods abandon us. We will never ask them again. The devil is the fairest. As long as you can pay, he will give you what you want. Anthony also said coldly, every new life is a treasure we snatched back from the gods. Ivo said with emotion, is this a difficult start to hell? Then what do we have to pay for offering sacrifices to the devil? Uncle Shadow said lightly, we pay our lives, and everyone puts a 2-year lifespan on one end of the balance in exchange for the survival of the baby. Ivo fell silent suddenly, so that the whole tribe is his lifesaver. Maybe life is like this. There is always someone paying for you in a corner you don't know, obscured, silent, and suddenly looking back, only to realize that he has been burdened with a heavy debt that is unclear. I'm not talking about loan sharks. You reading book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to Read. The baby's breathing gradually weakened, but the totem did not respond. Bearman's face was full of anxiety, and the tribe members began to agitate. Isn't even the devil unreliable? Ivo was also a little anxious, and woke up Demasha, old devil, your devil is too unreliable, office efficiency is low, and I still want to comment on the National Model Unit? Dream you. Demasha was speechless, and it took a long time to reply, they worshipped this king, and I am so weak that you, a kid, dare to be rude to me. It's weird to worship me for being useful. Ivo was shocked, what should I do? Demasha said, I am one with you, and there is only one way. You can contribute vitality as energy, and then I can complete this vitality exchange. How much is the loss? At least 20 years of life. Ivo was silent, very tangled, with a lifespan of 20 years. A demon smile hung on Demasha's face, he is in conflict with you, waiting for his child to die, watching him wailing, what a delicious pain, no one can doubt how perfect you are. Ivo did not hesitate to curse, you have a brain disease. Conflict is conflict. The baby is innocent. Our family is sparsely populated. Every member is a family member. Because a little conflict will kill the family member, you should take medicine. Demasha smiled, I am a devil. Your so-called emotions are all excuses for emptiness and self-deception. If you want to save him, you have to give up 20 years of life, but no one knows that this is your credit. If you lose money without making a profit, why do you still want to do it? Iwo painfully said, every new life is innocent, You can think clearly, others will not appreciate you, you saved his child, he will still find your troubles in the future. He wanted to save the baby very much, but his life was selfish, he hesitated and couldn't make up his mind. After living in the tribe for 10 years, every member of the tribe is like a family member, and they have established a deep bond emotionally. Coming to this other world, Ivo felt the warmth of a home he thought he would never have a chance to have in the tribe. The feelings of the tribe are very deep. However, 20 years of lifespan, no one would give it out so easily. He is a kind person in his bones, but he knows how to do what he can. When he is protected, he would not mind doing some good things, but if the price exceeds the upper limit he can bear, and he will wisely put away his sympathy. Ivo gritted his teeth, fighting fiercely in his heart, one side is the innocent baby of the ethnic group, and the other is his lifespan. Demasha has been prying into Ivo's inner changes, and suddenly laughed, don't worry, 20-year lifespan is only a small part of you. Ivo was taken aback, how do you say this? Every time the mimics fuse blood, they will gain more vitality, so as the number of fusions increases, the lifespan will continue to rise. No, the blood family, your mimics, like the blood family, have almost unlimited lifespan. Ivo was surprised, doesn't that mean that the impersonators are immortal? How could the ancestors fall again? There are no immortal creatures in this world. Dimash's tone suddenly became a little sad. Even the demon lord with infinite lifespan has to face aging and death. In the history of thousands of years, the demon lord of purgatory has also, after changing one after another, the strength of the old lord gradually weakened under the strength of the long years, and was killed by the new lord. Even the famous dragon clan will experience aging and death. Old German, why didn't you say it just now? Dimasha laughed secretly. In addition to his desire to see Ivo's entanglement, more importantly, he wanted to learn more about Ivo's character. As a result, he was very satisfied. A host of emotions, more selfish than all self-centered. The host needs more investment value, and he feels more at ease with Ivo. Ivo took a long breath and felt a lot more relaxed. Since the 20year lifespan is something that he can easily make up for, he decided to save the baby. Within the scope of his ability and without harming his interests, he will lend a helping hand to his friends and people. Old Germany, exchange it. Suddenly Ivo felt the strength of his body gradually disappeared, and gradually became weak, as if something had taken away his vitality from the darkness. The scene in front of him began to blur. Ivo barely stood still, staring curiously on the back of his hand. Some subtle wrinkles appeared on his hands, shook his head and smiled. The body is now older than the soul. It's a strange change. Seeing that the baby's breathing is getting stronger and her little face is red and cute, Ivo feels a touch of satisfaction. Newborn babies are always innocent, and no one should deprive him of the right to experience life. If he has the ability to help but chooses to ignore it, thus killing a newborn, he will be very sad. He doesn't want to be a good person, but at least don't be too bad. Boss Bogado was relieved. It succeeded, and new children have been added to the group. There was also a rare smile on Anthony's face. Uncle Shadow snorted, fortunately to respond, otherwise I will call to purgatory and ask them. Ivo was weak and almost unsteady. Dimasha smiled mysteriously in his mind, boy, it's cheaper for you this time. Ivo suddenly felt energetic. The lost strength instantly recovered and continued to climb. He felt full of energy, every muscle was actively agitating, and his skin became smooth as silk again, and his eyes were radiant. If you compare vitality to flames, Ivo is now the sun in a group of torches. Ivo looked at his hands in surprise. What's the matter? Dimasha laughed. This is the vitality exchanged by the members of the tribe. Boy, you have made a lot of money, and you have to pay 20 years of life to exchange it for more than 300 years of vitality. The demon leader takes the initiative to build a trading scale with power. The emulator puts down his lifespan, and the demon leader gives it to the baby. Under normal trading conditions, Dimasha can extract more than half of his vitality. Trading with the devil will of course cost him more to fill his pockets, just like an unequal contract. But now, the energy used by Dimasha to build the trading channel is entirely provided by Ivo, which means that the executor of the contract has become him. Therefore, all the black hearts of Dimasha belong to Ivo. This is an exchange under the rules of the world. Whoever pays will benefit. There are more than 180 members in the tribe, each of whom has given 2 years of vitality, of which only a small part flows to the baby, and the rest are the black hearts of Dimasha, and now all are cheaper than Ivo. Ivo is speechless. 300 years, I've been so bad after living so long. The vitality is not only the longevity, but also greatly improves the healing power. Ivo felt full of energy all over, excited, and joyful in his heart. Sure enough, good people are rewarded. Seeing that Bearman's child was out of danger, the tribe members gathered around and chatted and discussed. Bearman was pleased and squeezed the baby's face in an affectionate manner. Bearman said boldly, "Thank you, everyone, I will come to my house later, take the ice rice as you like, you are welcome. Don't worry, I won't be polite to you. There is no food in the house, I will count on you." Bogdo laughed. Ivo stepped forward and stretched out his head to look at the sleeping baby. Is the child okay? Bearman glanced at Ivo, hesitated for a moment, and said in a bad mood, "You will ask Mok to go to my house later." Ivo nodded, "Thank you very much." Berman gave an ignorant reply. Ivo moved his shoulders, then, "It's time to settle the previous matter." Berman frowned, "But I didn't expect Ivo would mention it at this time. I'm not going to pursue you, what else do you want to do?" Chat hummed, "Ivo, don't know what is good or bad." Ivo's tone is calm, "There is no reason in this world that only you can take advantage and others can only endure. Give your child to someone else." Berman was too lazy to bother, and turned to leave, but Ivo grabbed Berman's clothes and prevented him from leaving. Berman stared coldly, handed the child to the village chief to hold him, turned around, looked down at Ivo from a high position, and said impatiently, "Boy, what do you want to do while playing? I don't have time to talk to you." Chat has Berman as his backer, and he is full of confidence. The tribe members looked at each other, completely outside the situation, but the scene that happened in the next moment shocked everyone. After Berman handed the baby to someone else, Ivo suddenly chiseled Berman's chest with a hammer, and Berman flew out and broke a cold pine tree. Chatter looked at his father flying out in a daze, swallowed in horror, pointed at Ivo and shivered, You. The village chief was furious, "Ivo! Do you know what you are doing?" Baga was shocked, "You are deliberately hurting your clan and want to be expelled." Anthony also frowned, "It's so irrational." Lore stood behind the village chief, watching this scene with his eyes wide open, his small face was full of confusion and disbelief. One hit, Ivo gave Harikon's hammer, "Come on." Berman stood up slowly, with anger under his indifferent expression, he tore his shirt to pieces, revealing his sturdy body, "Assault the same clan, you have no future." Berman's figure disappeared from the line of sight, Ivo's pupils shrank suddenly, the Warhammer subconsciously blocked him, and a fist thumped on it, his strength was extremely amazing. Ivo had pain in both arms and staggered back. Races that grow in strength with age are undoubtedly the most talented races, such as dragons, giants, and elemental creatures. Simulators also belong to this kind of talented creatures. Berman definitely far surpassed him, and Ivo knew that he was not an opponent before he played. But being weak is not an excuse for compromise. If faced with the strong, he only dares to bow to his knees, let others take it, and dare not even refute. Isn't it a coward who bullies the soft and fears hardship? Even if you know you will lose, you have to bite off a piece of meat. Ivo knows himself very well, he is a wayward person, if his heart is upset, he doesn't think about the consequences anymore. Ivo doesn't care about right or wrong. He chooses to be willful, and I am willing to buy a daughter. If this is irrational and immature behavior, then live a bit stupid, a bit stupid. There are no need for so many smart people in this world. Would rather stand and be beaten than kneel and beg for mercy. In layman's terms, one needs to be urinary. And the most important thing is, Ivo is lonely and unbearable, and he wants to be expelled and leave the tribe of boring life as soon as possible. He roared loudly, his body swelled suddenly, and turned into a Ural white bear. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com gave out an angry roar and slapped his palms frantically. Berman did not evade, blocking the huge bear paw with his hand, and was shot into the snow. The snow was splashing, and the tribe members evaded one after another. The snow is blowing all over the sky, rumbling endlessly, like a dragon and a snake rising on the land. Chatter looked at the violent Ural white bear in horror, his trembling legs involuntarily backed up. He never thought that Ivo, who was laughing all day long, would have such a terrifying side. He was so scared that he sat on the ground and sifted the chaff. Trembling likewise. Roar. The roar sounded under the snow layer, a pair of thick ape arms suddenly appeared, grabbed Ivo's bare head, and threw it out. The Ural white bear flipped rapidly in the air, and the rumbling broke a dozen trees before stopping. A dark red King Kong giant ape jumped out of the snow. This is Berman's transformation, Gold Class, Mountain Ape King. The two giant beasts tangled together, and the trees were shaken down by the aftermath, and the roar continued. The white hair of the Ural white bear is gradually dyed red with blood, but the situation is not one-sided, and the surrounding tribe members are all surprised. If I remember correctly, Ivo is only 10 years old this year. Ivo's unlimited potential has never appeared even in the history of the simulator. Pogadoo and Anthony took out their weapons. The village chief, do you want to stop them? The village head was about to nod. At this moment, Ivo suddenly took 2 heavy punches, and threw Berman to the ground, condescendingly, and shouted, "We are of the same race. We are the only ones left in this world. Family, we are facing the enemies who curse us for annihilation. If there is any dissatisfaction, we will fight it upright. Don't keep annoyingly making trouble. UU Reading Book friends are welcome to visit and read. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all in UU Reading. For mobile phone users, please go to Read.